It wasn't until I was terminally ill with cancer, and my husband's mistress came to my door telling me to hurry up and die, that was when I discovered my husband of 30 years had been unfaithful for 29 of them. When I confronted him, he just replied with utter impatience, "If I had known back then that I would get into university after our marriage, I would have died before giving up my true love to marry a woman like you." The third sister leaned smugly against her husband's shoulder and said, "You've been the professor's wife for so many years, it's time you stepped aside." And the adopted son I had doted on for over 20 years looked at me with utter disdain. "I was forced to be separated from my birth mother and call you mom all these years. You should have died long ago." Overwhelmed with despair, I tried to drag my husband down with me. When I opened my eyes again, my reborn husband had already shaken off my hand. "The engagement is off. A future college student like me is out of your league." I wasn't angry, just curious. If I, the top student, hadn't dropped out, how would you, the runner-up, ever have gotten into university? Today was the day Chang Tianlei came to discuss our marriage. Amidst everyone's teasing, he somewhat awkwardly took my hand and said, "Comrade Meng Xingyue, I, Chang Tianlei, promise to be good to you for the rest of my life." Mid-sentence, the clarity in Chang Tianlei's eyes suddenly clouded with confusion. After getting a clear look at me, his gaze turned sharp. He then wrenched his hand from mine and said in a stiff tone, "The engagement is off. We're in a new era now. Arranged marriages like this are outdated thinking, a rotten custom that should be discarded." I was already feeling a bit dazed when Chang Tianlei shoved my hand away with such force. I lost my balance and fell straight to the ground. Ignoring me on the ground, Chang Tianlei ran straight out into the courtyard, grabbing Fan Mingyao's hand. "Mingyao, you're the only one in my heart. I could never marry anyone else. Please, marry me. I promise I'll treat you well." Fan Mingyao's eyes were already red-rimmed, and at these words, tears of emotion spilled over. The two of them embraced, oblivious to everyone else, like a pair of star-crossed lovers finally united. The other onlookers, however, were utterly stunned. Zhu Yunmei, Chang Tianlei's widowed mother, shot him a withering glare. "Have you lost your mind? You're throwing away a wonderful wife like Xingyue for that cheap floozy. What on earth are you thinking?" Chang Tianlei scoffed dismissively. "Mom, I know you want me to marry Meng Xingyue because you're convinced she'll get into university, but I know for a fact she won't make it. I'm the one who's going to get in. That vicious country girl isn't worthy of me, so I'm going to bravely pursue my true love. Mingyao is my one and only. I won't make the same mistake again." The sting in my palm and the chaotic scene before my eyes confirmed it. This wasn't a final moment of clarity before death, nor was it a dream. I had been reborn. Chang Tianlei and I were practically betrothed from the womb. We grew up together and always had a good relationship. We originally planned to marry after our university entrance exam results came out, but Zhu Yunmei was worried that if I got into university, I'd look down on Chang Tianlei, so she moved the wedding forward. However, when the exam results were released, Chang Tianlei got in, but I didn't. Yet, far from neglecting me because of it, he actually treated me even better. He never said a word about me not being able to have children. To outsiders, he even claimed the infertility was his fault, and because he was afraid I'd be lonely, he adopted a child for us. For 30 years, I cared for his widowed mother, managed the household, and devoted myself to my husband and children at home. It wore me down and left me with a body full of ailments, yet I found it all worthwhile. Even when cancer brought me pain, I refused to give up. But while I fought against the cancer, others grew impatient. During my chemotherapy, the still youthful and beautiful Fan Mingyao came directly to my door. Without a shred of shame, she told me to let go. "Meng Xingyue, it's about time you died. Tianlei and I have been putting on this act with you for years. It's time for the curtain to fall." My adopted son held Fan Mingyao's hand affectionately and said, "Exactly. It's time for my parents to be together properly." That's when I discovered Chang Tianlei had been carrying on with the newly widowed Fan Mingyao as early as our second year of marriage. Even the son I had doted on for 20 years, whom I believed was adopted, was in fact their biological child. Overwhelmed with agony, I grabbed Chang Tianlei and demanded, "Why didn't you tell me sooner? I could have stepped aside and divorced you. Why did you have to waste my entire life?" But Chang Tianlei merely furrowed his brow. "I married you back then thinking you would get into university, but you didn't. I was the one who succeeded. After I got into university, I intended to divorce you, but my mother and I needed someone to take care of us. Later, when my career took off, I thought of divorce again. But then Mingyao gave birth to my son. I figured I'd let you raise the child and wait until he was older." That wait just dragged on until now. I was absolutely livid. With my last ounce of strength, I tried to drag Chang Tianlei down with me. My parents were furious. After helping me up, they snapped at Chang Tianlei. "Chang Tianlei, What on earth are you talking about? Today is the day you came to propose. Have you lost your mind? If you don't want to marry our Xinyue, why did you even bring these betrothal gifts to propose? Chang Tianlei shot my parents a dismissive look. These gifts are just for show. I'm taking them to Mingyao's house right now. Only Mingyao is worthy of me. The neighbors who had gathered to watch never expected a proper marriage proposal to turn out like this. They craned their necks and began to gossip. Exactly. If he didn't want to marry her, he should have said so sooner. Why wait until the proposal day to make a scene? I saw it coming. I've seen Chang Tianlei holding Fan Mingyao's hand and whispering to her more than once, but Meng Xinyue has only herself to blame for being too desperate. When a woman throws herself at a man, he'll never appreciate her. Despite the heated discussion, Chang Tianlei remained unmoved. He simply called for people to carry the betrothal gifts away, saying, "Everyone, please help me deliver these gifts to the Meng family." He even pulled aside Zhu Yunmei, who looked hesitant, and explained, "Mom, you have to believe me. I'm the one who actually got into university, not Meng Xinyue." My parents were furious, but knowing how much I liked Chang Tianlei, they suppressed their anger and stopped him, trying to persuade him to honor the engagement. I sighed and shook my head. "Mom, Dad, don't bother. Even if he wants to marry me, I don't want to marry him anymore." Chang Tianlei seemed taken aback by my response and let out a derisive snort. "Well, at least you have some self-awareness and know you're not good enough for a university student like me." With that, he simply walked out of my house. I just smiled as I watched the backs of Chang Tianlei and the other two as they left. A university student. I wouldn't be so sure about that. After leaving my house, Chang Tianlei took the betrothal gift straight to Fan Mingyao's home. With his silver tongue, he managed to secure the marriage arrangement between himself and Fan Mingyao on the spot. I didn't have much of a reaction. I just stayed at home, writing down everything I could remember for future reference. However, my staying indoors every day led Chang Tianlei to believe I was hiding at home crying. He even seized the opportunity when my parents were out to bring Fan Mingyao over to check on me. Seeing that my eyes weren't swollen from crying, Chang Tianlei looked surprised. He clicked his tongue and said to Fan Mingyao, "Mingyao, you're just too kind-hearted. Why bother visiting her? She knows perfectly well she's not good enough for me." Fan Mingyao gave me a smug look and said in a rather snide tone, "Xinyue, I'm actually here to apologize to you, and to thank you, because Tianlei told me everything. He's been reborn." I was somewhat taken aback. This Chang Tianlei, true to his years as a lawyer, could even make something as unbelievable as reincarnation sound convincing to Fan Mingyao. Seeing that I remained silent, just staring intently at Chang Tianlei, Fan Mingyao quickly stepped forward, blocking my line of sight. "Xinyue, I'm very grateful that in your past life you acted like a servant, looking after my child, but there's no future for you and Tianlei. Even if you begged him, it wouldn't work. We're the ones who are meant to be." I snorted coldly, muttered "You're welcome," and tried to shut the door, but Chang Tianlei blocked it with his foot. "A failed peasant woman like you, with no looks and no charm, is definitely destined to die a spinster, but you do have a knack for serving people as a maid, so, for old time's sake, since we grew up together, I'll allow you to come work as a maid in my house, to take care of my mother and Mingyao." My impatience grew, and I directly grabbed a broom, intending to chase the two of them out. Chang Tianlei quickly produced an invitation. All right, I'm done teasing you. This is the invitation to my and Mingyao's wedding. After all, you've looked after me my whole life. Of course I have to invite you. Of course, if you still have feelings for me and don't want to come, I won't hold it against you." I was utterly disgusted, but I still reached out and took the invitation. Seeing the date, I couldn't help but frown. A month from now, that's so far away. It's no wonder I found it strange. In my past life, Tianlei and I got married just days after the proposal. Why is he dragging his feet this time? Tianlei chuckled. "What do you know? That day happens to be when I'll receive my acceptance letter. As the saying goes, life's greatest joys are success in the imperial examinations and the wedding night. I'm determined to marry Mingyao at the peak of my success and happiness, so we can spend a blissful life together." The two of them were being unbearably lovey-dovey right in front of me, but after hearing it clearly, I dug my nails into my palm to keep from laughing out loud. In my previous life, after I married Chang Tianlei, he was constantly worried about failing his university entrance exams. Even though he doted on me in every way, he was always anxious and full of sighs. "Honey, you wouldn't look down on me if I don't get into university, would you, darling? Now that you've been accepted into university, could you help me too? I'd love to have the chance to go to university with you." At the time, I thought he only said that because he loved me, so when I found out I was first and Chang Tianlei was second, I didn't tell a soul. I chose to drop out myself and let Chang Tianlei take my place at the university, but all my sacrifice earned me was betrayal. This time, I don't have to lift a finger to make Chang Tianlei regret everything. A month flew by in the blink of an eye, and before we knew it, the day of Chang Tianlei and Fan Mingyao's wedding had arrived. Contrary to what everyone expected, I wasn't holed up crying. Instead, I arrived at the wedding venue happily, dressed in the new clothes my parents had made for me. This wedding sent shockwaves through the entire region. It wasn't just because Chang Tianlei had a sudden fit of madness during the marriage proposal. Ditching me, his childhood sweetheart and perfect match, to propose to Fan Mingyao instead, the whole scandal was the talk of the town, and everyone was dying to catch a glimpse of the femme fatale, Fan Mingyao, in the flesh. There was another reason, the sheer scale of this wedding. I found it all rather ridiculous. In my past life, when I married Chang Tianlei, Zhu Yunmei used the excuse of saving money for our university education. She gave us a shabby, pitiful wedding. I didn't even get a single new outfit, but this time, knowing he would get into university, Chang Tianlei went all out, spending the family's entire savings on a lavish banquet. Even though my own family was well off, in the resource-scarce 80s, a chance for a free feast was rare. With a why not, it's free attitude, I came straight over. My sudden appearance sent a shockwave through the crowd, and people couldn't help but start whispering to each other, "Oh my god. Is that Meng Xinyue? This wedding is definitely going to be called off. She's clearly here to make a scene." I'd do the same thing. Look how good Meng Xinyue has been to the Chang family all these years. Seriously, who could possibly put up with that? The murmurs of the crowd grew louder, but I simply pretended not to hear them. I found a random seat and sat down, only for Chang Tianlei and Fan Mingyao to spot me almost immediately. They probably never expected me to actually show up. After exchanging a glance, they picked up 2 glasses of wine and started walking towards me. Chang Tianlei looked me over and clicked his tongue twice. "You actually had the nerve to come. Don't tell me you heard me say you married me in a past life, so you dressed up this time hoping to steal the bride." Fan Mingyao's expression darkened, and she shot me a glare. "Meng Xinyue, I suggest you have some self-respect. Today is my wedding day with Tianlei. What's the meaning of you showing up dressed in that glaring red?" I smiled. "Oh, you sent me the invitation yourselves, yet you don't want me here. Are you afraid of me? Afraid I'll steal your husband?" I scoffed at Fan Mingyao. "You're overthinking it. I wouldn't take a scumbag like him even if you paid me. I'm here for my admission letter." The moment the admission letter was mentioned, the two of them burst into laughter. Chang Tianlei doubled over with laughter, looking as if he couldn't be bothered to say another word to me. He snatched the MC's microphone from the stage and announced to the wedding guests with a grin, "Everyone, take a look. My ex-girlfriend is shamelessly clinging to me, even claiming she wants to steal my admission letter. Has she lost her mind? I've always said it. I, Chang Tianlei, will be the only university student from our county. It's a done deal, set in stone. No one can take this away from me." Everyone had heard Chang Tianlei say this countless times over the past month. Seeing how confident he was, everyone's initial skepticism turned into absolute conviction. One by one, they joined in, laughing at me. They said I was daydreaming, that I'd lost my mind after being abandoned by Chang Tianlei, and things of that sort. Just at that moment, the village chief, followed by a messenger, came jogging into the wedding venue. He exclaimed excitedly, he got in. The only university student in the entire county is from our village." Chang Tianlei was beside himself with excitement. He straightened his clothes and hurried over to the village chief, eagerly reaching out with both hands to receive the admission letter. But the chief didn't even look at him. Instead, he placed the letter directly into my hands. "Congratulations, Xinyue." I took the acceptance letter, mumbled a stiff thank you, and immediately felt my nose sting and my eyes well up, aching to burst into tears right then and there. But while I was over the moon, Chang Tianlei was stunned. He stared at the village chief and the courier for a long moment. Seeing their hands were empty, he finally couldn't hold back. "Chief, did you make a mistake? Why did you give the acceptance letter to Meng Xinyue?" The village chief frowned. "A mistake? I may not have gone to university, but I can still read the characters for Chang Tianlei and Meng Xinyue. The name on that acceptance letter is Meng Xinyue's. If I don't give it to her, who should I give it to? You." Chang Tianlei hurried to explain. I didn't mean it like that. I just meant, where is my acceptance letter?" The village chief was even more exasperated. "Your admission letter. Where on earth did you get an admission letter? That university only accepts the top scorer. You came in second, you weren't admitted, so how could you possibly have a letter?" While Xinyue was hitting the books, all you did was goof off with Fan Mingyao. "Now you're worried about an admission letter. Let me tell you, it's too late." The moment those words were spoken, not just Chang Tianlei, but everyone present was stunned. Zhu Yunmei's smile froze. She tugged at Chang Tianlei's sleeve. Tianlei, what's going on here? Chang Tianlei's composure shattered instantly. The smug, triumphant expression vanished from his face. Ignoring Zhu Yunmei, he shook his head like a madman, muttering, "No, it's impossible. It can't be. I was the top scorer. That acceptance letter is rightfully mine. There's no way they made a mistake. This makes no sense." As he spoke, he lunged forward and grabbed my arm. "Give me back my acceptance letter." Fearing Chang Tianlei might hurt me, the village chief and the postman quickly shielded me, pushing me firmly behind them. The chief slapped Chang Tianlei across the face and shouted, "Have you lost your mind? I told you clearly, you didn't get in. Making a scene with Xingyue won't change a thing." With that statement, everyone finally understood the situation. So, all this month, Chang Tianlei's daily celebrations about being a college student were just him being delusional. He never actually got in. Fan Mingyao's eyes widened in shock. "Tianlei, didn't you say you were the college student? Why is it Meng Xingyue? Have you been lying to me all along?" I've already given myself to you. You promised me you'd be a college student. I even called off my original engagement for you. How could you do this to me?" My eyebrows shot up in surprise. I never imagined Chang Tianlei and Fan Mingyao would progress so quickly, skipping the wedding altogether and becoming husband and wife directly. But on second thought, I suppose it makes sense. In her previous life, Fan Mingyao's husband died not long after their marriage. If they were capable of doing something like that back then, it's no surprise they'd do it now. Fan Mingyao's parents and brother were absolutely furious. "Chang Tianlei, my sister was already betrothed to someone else. It was only because you claimed to be a university student that we agreed to your proposal." "That's right. We didn't even ask you for a bride price. That other match was with a wealthy man, you know." "You have to give me an explanation, otherwise, I'll say this was a marriage scam." Fan Mingyao was sobbing uncontrollably. Chang Tianlei didn't know what was going on, but he still took her hand and tried to reassure her. "Honey, something must have gone wrong. But it's okay. If I don't get in this time, there's always next time. It's fine. I will become a university student. History can't be changed." Fan Mingyao was at a loss for words, but I found the whole thing ridiculous. Since the college entrance exam was reinstated, it's become more standardized and more difficult with each passing year. If this were the Chang Tianlei from his past life, I believe he actually might have had a shot at passing. But the man he is now is 30 years removed from when he last took that exam in his previous life. How on earth could he possibly pass it now? And it wasn't just me who found it ridiculous. The other wedding guests thought it was laughable too. Doubled over with laughter and unable to stop themselves from gossiping about it. "Oh, for heaven's sake, if he can't pass it this time, what makes him think he'll manage next time? Seriously, he was so cocky just a moment ago, boasting about being a college student and all. Bet his face is stinging now. You know what? I'm starting to think this Chang Tianlei was just spouting nonsense to land himself a wife. That's very likely. His grades have never been as good as Meng Xinyue's. What makes him think he could get in? He was probably lying through his teeth. Well, this is interesting. Chang Tianlei really went and traded a watermelon for a sesame seed, didn't he?" The crowd was jeering relentlessly, and Fan Mingyao's family was also pressing Chang Tianlei incessantly to make up the dowry payment. They threatened to have him thrown in jail on charges of marriage fraud if he didn't comply. Chang Tianlei was utterly bewildered, with no clue what was really going on. He fixed his desperate gaze on me and demanded, "Meng Xinyue, you tell me right now, what the hell is this all about? How did my college acceptance letter end up in your hands? What underhanded trick did you pull? You give that letter back to me now, or I swear I'll sue you. I'll have you charged with stealing my university spot and drag your name through the mud until you're utterly ruined. A miserable death. I already died a miserable death in my past life." I smiled at Chang Tianlei and said, "Go on then, hurry up and go. Don't just talk the talk here. I'll be waiting for the day you bring people to arrest me." With that, I bid farewell to the village chief and, under the envious gazes of the crowd, left directly with my letter of admission in hand. Even from a great distance, I could still hear the sound of everyone's mocking laughter and the frantic, furious shouts of the Fan family. I walked home with the admission letter in hand. Before I even reached our gate, I saw my parents waiting for me. They knew the acceptance letters had arrived that day, but they didn't know who had gotten in. Seeing my red-rimmed eyes and my face crumpling with the effort not to cry, they immediately rushed to comfort me. "Don't cry, sweetheart. We can just take the exam again. Your father and I are still young. We can support you. If that good-for-nothing Chang Tianlei managed to pass, you'll definitely do even better. In my past life, I married Chang Tianlei to fulfill his dream of going to university. I sacrificed my own chance at a higher education. At the time, my parents didn't know the truth. They just kept comforting me, saying, Xinyue, it's alright. We believe in you. We can work to earn money so you can keep studying for the exams. We're sure you'll get in. With my parents' encouragement, I genuinely intended to continue my studies, but Zhu Yunmei wasn't having it. Xinyue, she said, Tianlei has just gotten into university. This is when he needs someone to look after him the most. If you go off to study too, who's going to take care of everything at home? Besides, is it even guaranteed you'll pass if you take the exam? If you fail, not only will we have wasted all that time, but we'll also be out the money for the test itself. Your top priority right now is to get pregnant, give Tianlei a child, and lock him down for good. Otherwise, as a college graduate, he'll eventually look down on you. And so, I gave up my chance to retake the college entrance exam. My entire world revolved around Chang Tianlei, to the point where my parents passed away filled with endless regret for me. Seeing the new streaks of white in my parents' hair, a fresh wave of sorrow hit me. For the first time since my rebirth, tears finally fell. Mom, Dad, I said, I passed. I'm a college student now. My parents were so overwhelmed with emotion they nearly fainted. It was supposed to be a joyous occasion, yet the three of us ended up in a tearful embrace, crying our hearts out. For the next several days, a steady stream of well-wishers and matchmakers descended upon our home, practically wearing out the doorstep. However, with the memories of my past life, the thought of marriage was the furthest thing from my mind. My reluctance to marry, however, was misinterpreted by Chang Tianlei as lingering feelings for him. As I returned home after updating the family registry, he appeared out of nowhere and slipped inside just as I was closing the door. It had only been half a month, but Chang Tianlei looked haggard, with bruises even visible on his face. I didn't need to think twice to know the Fan family must have beaten him. I looked at Chang Tianlei with some impatience. What do you want with me? Chang Tianlei sighed, his expression utterly dejected. Instead of answering my question, he spoke as if to himself. The Fan family did this to me, but don't worry, the injuries aren't serious, but you can't really blame them. They only agreed to let Mingyao marry me because they thought I was a university student. They gave a generous dowry and even gave me a lot of money. Now that things have turned out this way, it's only natural they're furious. My impatience flared. I have no interest in any of this. I don't want to know. And frankly, I couldn't care less if you got yourself killed. Chang Tianlei looked at me and sighed again. Xinyue, why say such hurtful things in anger? I know all about it. Suitors are flocking to your door, yet you haven't accepted a single one. Isn't it because you're still waiting for me? I rolled my eyes. Are you out of your mind? Whether I want to marry or not has absolutely nothing to do with you. How could it not be related? Chang Tianlei looked at me with deep affection. When you first got your acceptance letter, I didn't put it together. I thought my rebirth had changed a lot of things, but the more I thought about it, the more it didn't add up. I was reborn after the college entrance exam. The scores and everything were already set in stone. There's no way my rebirth could have changed any of that. The only thing that changed is that I didn't marry you. I held back my anger. What exactly are you trying to say? Seeing the impatience in my tone, Chang Tianlei wasn't angered. Instead, he continued, at first, I thought you must have pulled some underhanded trick to keep me out of university, but now I see it. It was never that complicated, actually, in our past life. It was you who got into university, you found out your results early, dropped out on your own, and gave the opportunity to me, didn't you? I let out a cold, dismissive humph. So what? I don't want to talk about that past life anymore. Seeing me admit it, Chang Tianlei broke down in tears. I'm sorry, Xinyue. I'm so sorry. I was blind. I couldn't see that you were the one who truly loved me. I was so terribly wrong. I need to come clean with you. The truth is, in our past life, you weren't infertile. I just felt you were beneath me. I saw you as a servant, a nanny, and I didn't want to have a child of my own blood with you, especially when, a few years later, Mingyao had a child. That's why I put sterilizing drugs in your food, to make you infertile. My goal was for you to raise the child for Mingyao and me. Even the cancer you developed was because of that drug. All of this is my fault. I frowned, feeling a shock run through me, but I didn't speak. Instead, I felt a wave of relief. If I had given birth to a child in my past life, I would have missed them terribly after being reborn. Not having children is actually a relief, so I just rolled my eyes. I don't want to talk about the past anymore, and you should drop it too. You wronged me in our past life. It's true, but I also killed you. We can start over now. As long as you just leave me alone. Chang Tianlei's eyes lit up. So you're saying you forgive me? Before I could even speak, Chang Tianlei let out a sigh of relief all on his own. I knew it. Xinyue, you love me so much. Of course you'd forgive me. I was speechless with anger. When did I ever forgive him? I still hate him, but I've been reborn now, and I can't let the grudges from my past life ruin this new one, so I never even considered revenge against Chang Tianlei. I just want to live my own life in peace. Seeing me remain silent, Chang Tianlei grew even more smug. At first, I thought my rebirth was a chance to pursue true love all over again, but it's only now I've come to realize, this second life is actually a gift from heaven, a chance for me to make things right, to make amends to you. That's why, this time, I won't love anyone else. I want to build a family with you, grow old together, and stay by your side until our hair turns white. Let's start over. It's true that people really do laugh when they're at a loss for words. I couldn't help but let out a chuckle. Chang Tianlei, have you lost your mind? Have you forgotten that you're a married man right now? As soon as I said that, Chang Tianlei's expression changed. Fan Mingyao isn't the kind of woman I imagined at all. For the past month, she's done nothing but criticize me every single day. She has no idea that if it weren't for her, I would never have ended up like this. But you would never point fingers at me. You've always been so gentle and kind. It was my own blindness that made me fall for the wrong person. All I feel for her now is hatred, not love. I've sacrificed so much for her, and she doesn't appreciate any of it. So I've made up my mind. I'm going to divorce her. Because you're the one I should have married. As the saying goes, a prodigal son's return is more precious than gold. You can absolutely trust me on this. Even though Chang Tianlei's words were nauseating, I knew him well enough to see he was genuinely remorseful. As he spoke, Chang Tianlei knelt on one knee and looked at me. Comrade Meng Xinyue, I wish to marry you. I, Chang Tianlei, promise to love and respect you for the rest of my life. I couldn't help but laugh. You want to marry me? That's right. Chang Tianlei nodded smugly. I do, but it's not without conditions. I want it to be just like our last life together. What do you mean? I asked, a bit confused. Chang Tianlei quickly replied, I want you to drop out again and give your university spot to me. But don't worry, I can't possibly cheat on you now, because you're the only one I see, and what's more, Chang Tianlei gritted his teeth, as if steeling his resolve, and I'm willing to let you try for university again next year. I know my mother would never agree, but, for you, I'll convince her. Then we can go to university together and be the perfect couple. I couldn't hold back any longer. Steadying my breath, I shouted, Chang Tianlei, are you out of your mind? Is your family so poor you can't even afford a mirror? If you don't have a mirror, you must at least have some piss, right? I admit, in my past life, I was blind to have fallen for trash like you, ruining my own life. Now that I have a second chance, why on earth should I give up my university spot for you? After 30 years with Chang Tianlei, this was the first time I'd ever lost my temper in front of him. He was stunned for a long moment before finally speaking. I'm not asking you to give it up for good. I'm just asking you to let me go first, for now. Didn't I say I'd allow you to take the exam next year? I was so angry I nearly rolled my eyes. Oh, so now you're the one who's hard done by. I don't need your permission to go to university, and I certainly don't need to retake the exam. If you want to go to university, go take the test yourself. Chang Tianlei hung his head but didn't stand up. I can't pass it. Right after I was reborn, I still remembered a lot of things from before, but over this past month, my memories of my past life have been getting fuzzier and fuzzier. Especially anything related to studying. The only thing I clearly remember is how good you were to me. I've forgotten almost everything else. And that's exactly why I regret it even more. How could I have been so terrible to you in my past life? I ignored Chang Tianlei and instead asked him, you say you won't get in, but have you ever considered the possibility that I might not get in either? Chang Tianlei looked up at me, somewhat puzzled. So what if you don't get in? I've already promised to marry you and treat you well. With my love, that should be enough for you. You know perfectly well that if I can't go to university, my whole life will be ruined. I've already tasted that kind of good life. How could I possibly accept a life of hardship? Besides, university isn't as wonderful as you think. Even if you do get in, can you guarantee you'll be happy? The only way you'll find lasting happiness is by staying with me, by marrying me. I'm only doing this for your own good. I spat in his direction, wishing I could shove his head into a slop bucket to sober him up and make him think about what he'd done and said. But I held myself back. I raised my voice. Chang Tianlei, let me make this perfectly clear. I will never give up my university spot for you. Your so-called love is worthless to me. You can blithely say, so what if I fail the exam? But whether you pass or fail, what happens to your future? None of that has anything to do with me. You brought this all on yourself. Now, get out of my house, and never show your face to me again. Chang Tianlei finally realized it. I wasn't playing hard to get. I genuinely had no intention of marrying him or giving up my university spot for him. He slowly stood up, glaring at me with a dark expression for a long moment. Meng Xingyue, you're just being ungrateful. I'm your husband-to-be. You should be handing your university opportunity over to me. I took a step back from his menacing glare. What do you think you're doing? Do you want to kill me? Let me tell you something, even if I die, you'll never get into university. Chang Tianlei sneered coldly. Kill you? Why would I kill you? I'm just here to set things right. As he closed in on me, the smile on his face grew increasingly repulsive. You're my wife. In our past life, you begged me to sleep with you. This time, I won't make you beg. I'll take the initiative myself. Once you become my woman, I'll tell everyone it was you who seduced me. If you don't want your parents to become the talk of the town, you'll have no choice but to marry me and give up your chance at an education. After finishing his piece, Chang Tianlei wasted no more time and started getting handsy with me. I didn't struggle. Instead, I leaned close to his ear and whispered, Chang Tianlei, do you know how many years they give for public indecency these days? Chang Tianlei froze for a second. Before he could react, the front door of my house burst open. My parents, the village chief, and a whole crowd of people rushed in and pinned him down. You set me up, didn't you? Chang Tianlei demanded frantically. To be honest, it wasn't exactly a setup. I had actually gotten home much earlier. I just caught a glimpse of Chang Tianlei hiding there and figured he was up to no good. So, instead of going straight home, I went back only after telling my parents. The whole point was to let everyone know that Chang Tianlei is a complete lunatic. 18. Caught red-handed. The village chief had everyone help restrain Chang Tianlei to take him to the police station. Chang Tianlei screamed like a madman. I've done nothing wrong. Don't arrest me. Meng Xingyue is my wife. I've been reborn. You idiots. Let me go. I'm going to college, not to prison. Unfortunately, no one believed Chang Tianlei's claims of being reborn anymore. After all, his prophecy about going to university never came true, so everyone just dismissed him as mentally ill. Hearing the commotion, Zhu Yunmei desperately tried to block everyone's way, but no one paid her any mind. She then turned and knelt before me, kowtowing. Xingyue, you have to say it. Tell them you seduced Tianlei. He can't go to jail. I naturally ignored Zhu Yunmei. Instead, I worked with the others to make sure Chang Tianlei was sent to prison. It wasn't until he was sent to prison that everyone realized Chang Tianlei was truly insane. He had actually strangled Fan Mengyao to death. Fan Mengyao asked him for a divorce, mocking and taunting him. In a fit of rage, he strangled her. After killing her, he didn't even think he'd done anything wrong. Instead, he came to my house to marry me. That's when it finally dawned on me why Chang Tianlei had been acting so strangely when he spoke to me, and why he was so certain he could get a peaceful divorce from Fan Mengyao. It was because Fan Mengyao was already dead. In the end, Chang Tianlei was sentenced to death for murder. Upon hearing that Chang Tianlei had been sentenced to death, Zhu Yunmei went mad on the spot, fled the village, and vanished without a trace. But all of that had little to do with me anymore. Because the new semester was starting, holding my letter of admission, I stepped onto the campus I never had the chance to enter in my past life, beginning my new, perfect life. Story 2. In the 40th year of my marriage to Zhuang Dongliang, I passed away suddenly from sheer exhaustion. For those 40 years, I cared for my mother-in-law, who was bedridden for 35 years until her passing, and raised my son to adulthood. My final wish was to be laid to rest beside my parents. Yet the very next day, my body was donated, without compensation, to the research institute where Zhuang Dongliang's first love worked. Two elderly souls, well past their prime, shared a tender kiss before my withered, unclothed remains. If it weren't for her, we wouldn't have lost all those years. Still, she raised our child all these years and now funds your research. I suppose that counts for something, a small atonement for her mistake. It's just a shame the youth we lost can never be reclaimed. Their youth was the very essence of my life for half a century. My soul wandered the heavens, my heart utterly broken. When I opened my eyes again, it was the very day the matchmaker came to call. The young Zhuang Dongliang wore a stern, cold expression. As you wish, you will bring your dowry to fund my studies and care for my mother. I'll marry you. It's settled. Hemiao. Once you're married, you must serve your mother-in-law well and take good care of Zhuang Dongliang. After all, Zhuang Dongliang is the only high school graduate in our village. He's bound to be the only university student too. Comradely Hemiao, a heavy responsibility rests on your shoulders. Beaming with joy, the matchmaker tightly clasped my hand and Zhuang Dongliang's together. In that clasp, his resistance felt unmistakably real. But, didn't I die? In a panic, I looked around, reflected in the glass window. Amidst the crowd of curious villagers, was a young face. It was me. At 19 years old, I had actually gone back to the day I was betrothed to Zhuang Dongliang. You're not very educated, we're not on the same level and have nothing in common. Frankly, you're not a good match for me. The only reason I'm letting you into this family is because you seem honest enough. I have classes to attend in the county town. After we're married, you'll stay home and look after my mother. She's given all her ration coupons to me, so you'll have to make sure she eats first with whatever food we have. The faces of Zhuang Dongliang from my past and present life overlapped in my mind, his cruel words still ringing in my ears. I jerked my hand back as if I'd been shocked. Who said I'd marry you? The matchmaker was startled when I abruptly pulled my hand back, chiding me with a playful scold. Oh my, the bride-to-be is getting shy. The whole house and courtyard erupted in laughter from the gathered villagers, who all began to tease me in a chorus. You were always running over to the Zhuang family's place, and now that you're about to marry into it, how come you're suddenly bashful? Exactly, this is a new era. No one will laugh at you for choosing your own partner. He's the only educated man in our whole village, and you managed to get him. Meow, you're one lucky girl. In my past life, I fell into the water and was saved by Zhuang Dongliang. Deeply grateful for his life-saving grace, I did everything I could to repay him. I would give the pastries from the state-run store, things I couldn't bear to eat myself, packet by packet to Zhuang's mother. I used the fabric ration coupons I got to make new clothes for Zhuang Dongliang, while I wore patched-up coarse cloth. Mrs. Zhuang saw that I was a hard worker with a good temper, and an orphan girl who came with her own dowry. She demanded that I repay him by marrying Zhuang Dongliang. My dear girl, my Dongliang caught a fever from the cold saving you. He's missed several days of school because of it. Besides, everyone knows he revived you mouth to mouth. If you don't marry Dongliang, no one else will have you. How could your poor parents rest in peace, knowing their daughter is an old maid living at home, with a mix of coaxing and intimidation? I was pushed into the Zhuang family's grasp before I even understood what marriage truly meant. After 40 years of toiling like a beast of burden, all I reaped was betrayal and heartless manipulation. Since fate has granted me a second chance, I will not make the same mistakes again. My mother says you should pack your things and come with me today. I have to get to school and don't have time for a wedding banquet, just as in my past life. Zhuang Dongliang showed no patience, hastily calling on the villagers to help move the dowry. When my parents were alive, they were hardworking and diligent, leaving behind a considerable family fortune. Later, relying on my dowry, the impoverished Zhuang Dongliang was able to finish high school, get into university, and upon graduation, secure a position in a government office where his career took off, with everyone bustling about to help carry the belongings. In my past life, I muddled my way into the Zhuang household just like that. There wasn't even a wedding, let alone a single celebratory character in sight. I always thought Zhuang Dongliang was just a clueless, unromantic man, but just 2 months after my death, he threw a lavish, high-profile wedding to marry Sun Yuling. He personally designed every part of the ceremony and was even moved to tears several times. In the old days, marriage was just about finding someone to get by with. It didn't matter who it was. Life was equally bland. It wasn't until I married Yuling today that I finally understood what it means to find happiness, even if it came late. In this lifetime, I will never stand in the way of his happiness again. Seeing that everyone was about to start moving the things, I hurriedly spoke up to stop them. Stop, put it all down. The crowd looked at me, puzzled, and Zhuang Dongliang grew even more impatient. Enough, Li Hemiao. You just want to haul everything out, piece by piece, to show off how much dowry you have, don't you? We're all working people. You're just living off your parents' blood and sweat. What is there to boast about? As if I married you for your dowry. Let me tell you, if you hadn't hounded me and my mother, I'd never have married an illiterate like you. The brand new army green trousers that Zhuang Dongliang had his hands stuffed into were made by me. I spent a fortune on the fabric and stayed up all night sewing them by lamplight. It was the same in my past life, using my things and then cursing me out. If there's one thing I've gained from living this life over, it's 40 years of experience being made a fool of. I'm no longer that timidly Hemiao from my past life. Seeing Zhuang Dongliang's chin held high, I also lifted my head and crossed my arms. You won't marry me. Well, I won't marry you either. Too. As my words hung in the air, everyone froze in place. After all, in my past life, I truly did spend all my time at the Zhuang family's house, with Mrs. Zhuang's gossipy tongue adding fuel to the fire. The whole village knew I was persistently pestering and had latched onto Zhuang Dongliang. While matchmakers wore out the thresholds of my peers' homes, I was left untouched, considered spoken for. Now, I firmly pressed down the chair that had been lifted and cleared my throat. Comrade Zhuang Dongliang, The reason I went to your house to help out before was because I was grateful that you saved me. Later, when your mother said your family was so poor you couldn't afford tuition, and asked me to use my dowry to support your education, I reluctantly agreed, also out of a sense of repaying a debt of gratitude. But now, since you think I'm not good enough for you and look down on my dowry, it's just as well. I won't be reaching for this high branch anymore. From now on, we'll go our separate ways and leave each other in peace, like well water that doesn't interfere with river water. In a clear, ringing voice, and ignoring Zhuang Dongliang's darkening expression, I clasped my hands and bowed to the crowd. My apologies to all my good neighbors. I'm sorry to have wasted your time and effort today. I, Li Hemiao, can't bear the thought of it. I'm off to buy meat and prepare a stew. Please, everyone, come over tonight for a meal. Consider it a celebration of my new beginning. And if there are any hard-working, self-reliant gentlemen out there, I'd be grateful if the aunties and grannies could keep me in mind. I deliberately emphasized the words, not asking for help from others, and shot Zhuang Dongliang a glare. I was always a free spirit by nature. It was only through Zhuang Dongliang's repeated put-downs in my past life that I became timid and insecure. But now I'm determined to pull myself out of this mire, in this lifetime. Zhuang Dongliang can forget about spouting his nonsense in front of me. While everyone was still waiting to see what Zhuang Dongliang would do, I had already swiftly shown him the door. To my surprise, Zhuang Dongliang flew into a rage. Li Hemiao, what kind of game are you playing? How could you possibly not want to marry me? I curled my lip at him. What makes you such a catch? You're as skinny as a baby chick. Zhuang Dongliang was not yet a man of high standing. Merely a frail scholar living off the generosity of others. Amidst the jeering laughter, Zhuang Dongliang's face flushed crimson. Li Hemiao, stop acting so high and mighty. You even gave up a kidney for me. He stopped abruptly, and a jolt of shock ran through me. In my past life, when Zhuang Dongliang was diagnosed with kidney disease, transplant technology was still in its infancy. Yet, the moment I was confirmed as a match, I donated my kidney to him without a second thought. After the surgery, I neglected my own recovery, caring for him at his bedside day and night. Losing a kidney and pushing myself relentlessly took its toll, leaving me with chronic health issues. How on earth does he know about this now? Seeing the sudden, evasive look in his eyes, a bold suspicion surged within me. Zhuang Dongliang had been reborn too. I couldn't help but clench my fist. How dare he try to drag me back into that quagmire? What are you talking about? I pretended not to have heard clearly. So, you're going back on your big talk. You want to marry me now? Zhuang Dongliang stared at me, his face once again full of arrogant pride. Humph. So that's the game you're playing. I feigned advance to cover your retreat. You're desperate to marry me but don't want to look like you're throwing yourself at me. So you try to provoke me like this. I can't believe you'd stoop to this. Li Hemiao, I'm telling you right now, I will never bow my head to you. If you want to marry, you'd better yield now. Once I step out this door, even if you kneel and kowtow to me, I won't. Before Zhuang Dongliang could finish, I chased him out of the yard with a broom. What filth is this? Disgusting. As he left, Zhuang Dongliang was grinding his teeth in fury. Fine, Li Hemiao, you made this choice yourself. When I'm rich and successful with a beauty by my side, you'll be crying with regret so hard you won't even know how to wail properly. That evening, I hosted a banquet at my home with 8 tables to properly thank the folks from my village. My parents passed away early and didn't leave me any siblings, so I've always had to rely on the villagers for help with all sorts of matters. My close girlfriends at the table tried to talk some sense into me. Hemiao, even though Dongliang has a bit of a temper, he's still one of the few promising young men from all the villages around here. Who knows? He might actually get into university and make something of himself. Don't let a moment of anger lead you down the wrong path. You've made your scene and vented your anger. If it comes to it, we'll go with you later to apologize to Auntie Zhuang. I heard there's a promising young woman at Zhuang Dongliang's school. It was the same in my past life. I gave half my life to the Zhuang family, yet in the end, everyone just said I was lucky to have chosen the right man. The wine in my mouth tasted all the more bitter. I'd rather stay single my whole life than ever marry Zhuang Dongliang. I took a swig of liquor. From now on, I'm living for myself. Just as the feast was in full swing, the door was flung open with force. An orphan girl has no manners. I'm not even here yet, and you started the feast. 3. Madame Zhuang swept into the room, putting on the same grand airs as she had in her past life. She immediately stole the spotlight, greeting everyone with great familiarity. Today is a joyous occasion for the Zhuang family. Eat, drink, and be merry, everyone. If the food and drink run short, just call for more. Our Zhuang family, a house of scholars, prides itself on propriety. It's my own failing that I brought such an ill-mannered daughter-in-law into the family. I apologize for this embarrassment, old mister. Zhuang was originally the brigade accountant. He stole liquor, got drunk, and died in the granary, yet Mrs. Zhuang spun the tale as a heroic sacrifice. That mouth of hers has always been skilled at turning black into white. At that moment, he called out to me at the top of his lungs, "Hemiao, I gave you money to host everyone. How could you start eating on your own without calling me when the feast was ready? Once you join our Zhuang family, you're no longer a child. If you keep being this greedy, people will laugh at you." Then, he whispered sweet nothings in my ear. "I used to think you were a sensible girl. How did you learn to act so foolishly? I'll let it slide since it's your first offense. Come back with me now, apologize to Don Leon, kneel and serve me tea, and I might still consider you a daughter-in-law of the Zhuang family. Otherwise, I'll make sure you never get married in your life." Seeing me frozen in place, she slapped me hard on the back. "Are you deaf when your elders are speaking? Get up this instant." How dare the bride sit down before all the guests have finished eating? As she spoke, she snatched the wine cup from my hand. "My son is studying to become a high official someday. Alcohol ruins the mind, so he cannot drink. I'll drink this one on behalf of the Zhuang family. Please forgive our poor hospitality. We haven't been good hosts." This turn of events left everyone stunned. So, it was Aunt Zhuang who paid, and Hemiao who did the work. Why didn't the child say so earlier? After that scene this morning, I really thought Hemiao wasn't going to get married. Turns out she just wanted to look good herself. "Hemiao, that was wrong of you. Hurry up and offer your mother-in-law a seat. In my past life, when I married into the Zhuang family, we didn't even hold a wedding banquet, yet Mother Zhuang went around collecting congratulatory money from everyone." The next day, Zhuang Dongliang left early to return to school in the county town. I was left alone to manage everything. I used my own dowry to prepare a feast of thanks. When the meal was served, Mother Zhuang, with just a few words, took all the credit for herself. The men received cigarettes, and the women and children had their pockets stuffed with melon seeds and candies. The entire village sang the praises of Zhuang Dongliang. I hosted the banquet myself to uphold the Zhuang family's reputation. Yet Mother Zhuang begrudged the expense and blamed me for taking matters into my own hands and wasting money. Then, under the pretense of thanking people for their money, she made me kneel at the doorway, kowtowing to everyone who came in or out, and wouldn't let me eat. A real man's pride is in his knees. A wife's duty is to bow in her husband's stead, obeying your mother-in-law and revering your husband as the sky. That's the Zhuang family way. The next day, my knees were swollen like two steamed brown sugar buns, yet I still had to work the fields and manage the household chores. All my dowry had been taken under the guise of safekeeping by Mother Zhuang. Even when I was pregnant and craved an egg, she scolded me for being greedy. With all the old grudges and new hatred, what makes me wish I could tear her to pieces the most, is that in a past life, she was the one who killed my child. In her middle age, Mother Zhuang was particularly sharp-tongued and hot-tempered. In the 5th year of my marriage to Zhuang Dongliang, she suffered a cerebral hemorrhage and was bedridden for over 30 years. Later, as Zhuang Dongliang's career soared, he found me useless on several occasions and wanted a divorce. It was Mother Zhuang who insisted on keeping me in the family. I was the one who let Hemiao into this house. You were always busy with work. All these years, it was Hemiao who kept me company. As long as I'm alive, don't you dare think about making Hemiao leave this house. Back then, I thought old Mrs. Zhuang was all bark and no bite. For over 30 years, I tended to her every need, nursing her through her final days. But on her deathbed, she sent me away and took Zhuang Dongliang and Sun Yuling's hands. I'm so sorry, my children. I was the one who insisted Dongliang marry Li Hemiao back then, but I truly had no other choice. If it weren't for the dowry Li Hemiao brought, how could we have afforded to send all of you to university together? And then it was my own failing. Becoming bedridden, I couldn't bear to see you burdened, so I let Li Hemiao hold the position of the Zhuang family's daughter-in-law for 40 years. Please, for the sake of the fact that I swapped my own grandson with the worthless girl Li Hemiao gave birth to, find it in your hearts to forgive your mother. I returned with the chicken soup, only to witness Madame Zhuang taking the son I had raised by the hand and telling him to call Sun Yuling mother. It was then that I realized the child Madame Zhuang had taken from me at birth should have been a daughter. My poor daughter, who had only been in this world for a single day, was thrown to the wolves in the back hills by her own grandmother. I rushed in to confront Madame Zhuang, but she had already breathed her last. I'm calling the police. Zhuang Dongliang just slapped me across the face. Li Hemiao, you drove my mother to her death, and now you're playing the victim. My body was already frail, and with the shock and fury, I collapsed to the ground and never got back up. Seeing her enemy, Madame Zhuang's eyes blazed with hatred, yet she still tried to pull rank on me as my mother-in-law. I snatched the wine cup back and smashed it on the ground. Auntie Zhuang must be starving with no rice to cook. coming here to talk nonsense. I am not her Zhuang family's daughter-in-law anymore. 4. Auntie Zhuang, everyone knows you're a devoted mother, you even gave your own grain ration coupons to Zhuang Dongliang, so where are you supposed to magically produce more coupons to throw a feast now? It was only after I pointed it out that the villagers realized the truth. Mrs. Zhuang, craving a reputation for virtue, had been telling everyone in person how hard it was for a widow like her to raise a child alone. What does it matter if an old woman like me goes hungry, but we can't let my son, a pillar of the nation, starve? I called out Mother Zhuang's lie and sneered, if you're that hungry and desperate for a bite of meat, you could have just asked. No one would have laughed at you. This was the first time I had ever stood up to Mother Zhuang. She was stunned and instinctively raised her hand to hit me, but then, glancing at the crowd gathered around, her eyes darted shrewdly, with a loud wail. She plopped down on the ground. What a wretched fate is mine, a new daughter-in-law, just through the door, and already she dares to curse her mother-in-law. Neighbors, I ask for your judgment. My son gave his life to save an ungrateful wretch, at my age, to be talked back to by a slip of a girl. I have no face left to live. With that, she rammed her head into my stomach, sending my insides churning. In my past life, when Mother Zhuang was bedridden, she'd douse me with water if it was too cold, too hot, or simply because she was in a foul mood, but I'm not putting up with that anymore. I drove my knee hard into Mother Zhuang's nose. She instantly let go of me, clutching her gushing nose and howling in pain. Zhuang Dongliang, who had just walked in, saw the whole thing. He strode over and slapped me to the ground. You ungrateful wretch, how dare you lay a hand on your mother-in-law? May you be struck by lightning. I spat a mouthful of bloody saliva in his face. Zhuang Dongliang, stop living in your fool's paradise. I'd rather die an old maid than ever marry you. You're ruining my reputation. I'll sue you for harassment. Mrs. Zhuang wiped the blood from her nose, her eyes filled with malice. Fine, Li Hemiao, you asked for this. How dare you refuse my goodwill? Today, I'll show everyone what a tramp you really are. Neighbors, I held back the truth before to spare Li Hemiao's dignity. But the day my son saved her, she had just been out in the wild fields fooling around with some man. She was so worn out from the act that her legs gave way and she slipped into the river. Li Hemiao is nothing but a filthy whore. Like a thunderclap from a clear sky, the wave of gossip instantly swallowed me whole. No matter the era, a woman's chastity is always the deadliest weapon used against her. A single rumor can destroy me, yet I have no way to prove my innocence. In this life and the last, the Zhuang mother and son have sought my death. I wiped the blood from the corner of my mouth, my eyes fixed on Zhuang Dongliang's. Zhuang Dongliang, in the name of all that is just, what really happened when I fell into the water? Do you have the guts to tell everyone the truth? The sisters all started chattering at once. Dongliang, is what your mother said true? For a woman, this is a matter of life and death. Don't let a moment's spite ruin Li Hemiao's entire life. Zhuang Dongliang flinched under my gaze for a second, but he gritted his teeth and said, Li Hemiao, you brought this on yourself, but if you're truly repentant, I'm willing to see this through and take in a used woman like you. In people's eyes, his expression was one of responsibility, mingled with sympathy and respect. Mrs. Zhuang curled her lip in disdain. Eat your fill. Everyone, then help us carry the dowry. And I ask you all to keep an eye on that loose woman, Li Hemiao. For me, make sure she doesn't try to fool around while my son is away. Zhuang Dongliang came over and grabbed my wrist. Li Hemiao, I'm willing to give you one more chance to turn your life around. At that very moment, the quiet sound of tires crunching on the ground broke the silence. A beam of car headlights illuminated my small courtyard. I let out a cold laugh. But you won't get the chance. 5. An army green truck pulled up in front of my house, and several agile female soldiers jumped out. Stepping out of the passenger seat was Guzi, the 13-year-old boy from our village. Sister Hemiao, I didn't hold you up, did I? I stuffed a big handful of candy into his hand and gave him a thumbs up, like a godsend. The female soldiers soon recognized me as well. Comrade, it's such a relief to see you're all right. The villagers were bewildered. But Zhuang Dongliang turned deathly pale and began muttering to himself, no, it can't be, how could she have known? He hurried over, trying to pull me aside. Hemiao, I agree, let's get married, I want to marry you, right now. Before I could say a word, a female soldier had already pushed him aside. Comrade, how dare you lay hands on a female comrade? Huh, it's you. Wasn't the person we rescued the other day handed over to you? As my sisters looked on in confusion, I finally told them the truth. The one who saved me was never Zhuang Dongliang, but a group of female soldiers who happened to be passing by, and I only learned this truth after I had already died. Back when I was preparing the feast, I used my memories from a past life to have Ergo deliver a letter for me. In the letter, I explained my situation and asked if they could come to help clear my name. The army camp was right in town. The women soldiers set off as soon as they got the message and arrived just in time. That day, we were on a mission and happened to rescue Comrade Li Hemiao, but we couldn't delay our task. Just then, this man came by and said he was from Comrade Li's village, so we entrusted her to his care. This caused another huge uproar. So it was the women soldiers who saved Hemiao. Zhuang Dongliang, how dare you claim it was you who saved her? Zhuang Dongliang stammered. And his mother quickly stepped in front of the crowd. Even if these girls fished her out of the water, without my Dongliang giving her mouth-to-mouth, Li Hemiao would have suffocated for sure. You all saw with your own eyes that my son saved Hemiao. The villagers were puzzled again, because when they heard Zhuang Dongliang shouting for help and rushed over, they had indeed seen him rescuing me. A female soldier frowned in confusion. That can't be right. When we handed her over, we had already performed chest compressions to expel the water Comrade Hemiao had inhaled. Artificial respiration is completely unnecessary now. Mother Zhuang shot them a glance. What do you little girls know? My son is a college student. The female soldiers immediately produced their identification. We may not be college students, but we are medics. We've fought for lives on the battlefield. You think we can't recognize a drowning man? I stared at Zhuang Dongliang, who couldn't meet my eyes. Zhuang Dongliang, it was the female soldier who saved me, yet you had the nerve to claim you were my savior. He even took advantage of the situation. He publicly ruined my reputation. You're using a favor to pressure me into marrying you. What are you really after, Mrs.? Zhuang quickly shielded Zhuang Dongliang behind her, craning her neck to speak, but was cut off by a female soldier. I knew I saw it right. She's the one who pushed her. The female soldier grabbed Mrs. Zhuang's wrist. I saw it from the vehicle that day. Comrade Li Hemiao was pushed into the river. It was you. That's the exact same outfit you were wearing that day. Now it was Mrs. Zhuang's turn to be terrified. She covered her face and shrank back into the crowd. It wasn't me. You're talking nonsense. You're slandering an innocent person. I demand to speak to your supervisor. She thought the female soldiers would be afraid, but to her surprise, they agreed without hesitation. Fine, let's go. We'll go with you to the police station and sort this out. At that moment, someone from the crowd of villagers stepped forward. On the day the rice seedlings fell into the water, I definitely saw sister-in-law Zhuang in the area, so it really was this exact outfit. I remember now. When Zhuang Dongliang called everyone over, Auntie Zhuang was wearing this very dress. If the female soldier comrade hadn't seen it with her own eyes, how could she be so certain it was this one? Now the whole truth is out. My falling into the water was a setup by the Zhuang mother and son from the very beginning, all to make me owe them a life debt. I slapped Zhuang Dongliang hard across the face. Take that, you shameless scoundrel. 6. The furious sisters swarmed forward, and while Mrs. Zhuang shielded her son as they fled in panic, she still managed to hurl a final threat. You ungrateful little wretch, letting you into this family is the greatest fortune of your life. Just you wait until my son makes it big, you'll be sick with regret. Without my tuition money this time around, let's see how Zhuang Dongliang is going to climb the ladder of success. Early the next morning, I packed my bags and headed to the village entrance. In my past life, I wasted my entire existence on the Zhuang family, only to be called a freeloader. I may not have had much schooling, but before I fell into the water, I was always out there finding work to support myself. In my previous life, my dowry all went to Zhuang Dongliang. Now, I'm going to use it to open a small shop. When the female soldiers heard about my plan yesterday, they praised me for being bold and decisive. They even promised to ask their superiors if they could pick me up on their way to the county town today. Just as I was waiting for the ride, fate had it that I ran into the Zhuang mother and son again. Along with Sun Yuling sitting on the back of Zhuang Dongliang's bicycle, the three of them looked at me, each with their own ulterior motives. Zhuang's mother had somehow borrowed the tuition money and deliberately took it out of her packed bag and stuffed it back in right in front of me. Some people, they think the whole show can't go on without them. Mark my words, a pillar of society like my son will always find help wherever he goes. An uncultured, rotten egg like you, trying to climb above your station and reach for my son, why don't you take a good, hard look at yourself in the mirror, see if you're even worthy? Now you're having regrets and come crawling back with your luggage. Too late. From behind the car seat, Sun Yuling deliberately wrapped her arms around Zhuang Dongliang's waist, craned her neck to look at me, her eyes and brows as haughty as in a past life. So you're Li Hemiao, the Hemiao that grows in the dirt. Your parents must be illiterate. How else could they give you a name like that? In my past life, the day after I married Zhuang Dongliang, Sun Yuling came to our door to pick him up for school. When Sun Yuling saw me, she looked at me the way a young lady from the old society would look at a servant girl. So you're Li Hemiao, the one who's been clinging to Zhuang like a leech. You've got that high-altitude flush on your cheeks. Didn't Xuan Dongliang bring you back any snow cream when he bought some for me? Just like now, she was dressed in the most fashionable dacron, her single braid dark and glossy. Meanwhile, I was still covered in the grime from cooking breakfast, my head wrapped in the blue scarf Shuang's mother had given me. I, like an ugly duckling seeing a swan for the first time. Her voice unconsciously grew softer. Of course I knew about the vanishing cream. Xuan Dongliang said his hands were chapped from the cold in the winter classroom, so I walked 40 li just to bring it to him. Before the words could leave my mouth, they were cut off by Xuan Dongliang emerging. What could you possibly have to talk about with a housewife like her? What would she even understand? You're wasting your breath. Get on. Sun Yuling nimbly hopped onto the bicycle's rear rack. While the lunchbox I had so carefully packed before dawn was shoved into her hands by Xuan Dongliang. There's a fried egg with sugar in it, just how you like it. They were so open and unashamed about it all that my anger just made me seem petty and small-minded. For the next 40 years, they used our old school ties and close friendship as an excuse to trample on my dignity, time and time again. I was just about to fire back a retort when a chattering crowd of village sisters swarmed up behind me. Each was carrying luggage, all of them stirred up by my words yesterday to follow me to the city and seek their fortune. Everyone had heard Sun Yuling's words, and now they all stepped up to defend me. Oh, you've had an education, all right. Pity it all went to the dogs. Didn't your parents teach you how to speak like a decent human being? Oh my. Look how tightly she's clinging to that man's waist. Don't worry, honey, people don't fight dogs for scraps. Sun Yuling's face flushed crimson with rage. You're all so vulgar. You're just jealous of Dongliang and me and our bright future. Unlike you lot, destined to grub in the dirt your whole lives. I cut her off right there. The chairman himself taught us that all revolutionary work is equally honorable. The laboring masses are the most glorious. Are you questioning the chairman's words? Sun Yuling was left speechless and trembling. You were dumped by Dongliang. You just can't accept it. So young, yet your head is full of nothing but romance. How can the country prosper with people like you? Hearing this, the sisters all started chattering at once. How dare you sling mud at others? My cousin works at the department store counter. She saw you two holding hands while shopping with her own eyes. My second uncle saw you two when he was showing an open-air movie at the county high school. The two of you were huddled off to the side, whispering, oh my, I'm almost too embarrassed to say. Back then, Auntie Zhuang was telling everyone in the village that our Hemiao was her Zhuang family's future daughter-in-law. So what does that make you? Homewrecker, you should be ashamed of yourself. Sun Yuling frantically tugged at Zhuang Dongliang's sleeve. Dongliang, say something. Zhuang Dongliang propped up his bike and pulled me aside. Hemiao, you've lived a whole lifetime too, haven't you? 7. His eyes were pleading, desperate for a word of confirmation. Unless I've lived another life, how else could Li Hemiao, once so easily manipulated by him, suddenly seem like a completely different person? I stared into those anxious eyes, a faint smile playing at the corner of my mouth. Zhuang Dongliang, are you out of your mind? Lived a lifetime? What kind of nonsense are you spouting? We have no relationship whatsoever. Keep your hands to yourself. I wrenched my wrist free from Zhuang Dongliang's grip. My miserable past life was Zhuang Dongliang's masterpiece. I will never let him look at me in this life with that same smug satisfaction. I want him to know that Li Hemiao, at 19, looks down on him. Zhuang Dongliang, from the bottom of her heart, having received his answer, Zhuang Dongliang looked wounded, but he soon let out a cold snort. Fine then, Li Hemiao. You deserve to never have the good fortune of being an official's wife in this lifetime. From now on, I'll take my wide, open road, and you can take your narrow, single-plank bridge. We're even, Li Hemiao, mark my words, I'm only going to get better and better. He was convinced that with the experience from his past life, he was destined for even greater success in this one. But how can we possibly be even? He still owes me from a past life. As Zhuang Dongliang was about to ride off with Sun Yuling, I grabbed the handlebars of his bike. Li Hemiao, even if you regret it now, there's no way I could ever. I cut off his shameless tirade. Give me back the bike. I bought that bicycle for Zhuang Dongliang in the first place. It's not just the bike. I want everything I ever gave him back. Give it back. No way. His mother immediately shoved me. You were the one who pestered and insisted on giving that to my Dongliang in the first place. How shameless can you be, asking for a gift back? I yanked the bike toward me with such force that Sun Yuling, who was on the back seat, was thrown off. You didn't think it was shameless when you took my things. How is it shameless for me to take back what's mine? Sisters, follow me to the Zhuang house. Let's take back what's ours to build up our shop's capital. With that, I shoved Zhuang Dongliang aside, hopped on my bike first. and rammed right through the Zhuang family's gate. The other sisters got to work, some hauled out the sewing machine, others grabbed towels and soap, and a few went to the kitchen for rice, flour, and cooking oil. Seeing her home being looted, Mrs. Zhuang let out a shriek and rushed to stop them, only to end up getting her face scratched to ribbons by one of the sisters-in-law in the scuffle. "So it was you who stirred up trouble last time, putting my mother-in-law against me, you old hag. Can't you just shut your mouth?" Sun Yuling had long been frightened out of her wits, her face pale as she trembled and hid behind Zhuang Dongliang. Zhuang Dongliang initially tried to save face by saying a real man doesn't fight women, but after the sisters cursed him as a heartless scoundrel and landed a few punches, he scrambled away in a panic to fetch the village chief. "Village chief, these women are trying to cut off our village's path to a bright future. Smashing up my home is like smashing the future of our society." Old Mrs. Zhuang, wailing with her face in her hands, her face streaked with tears and snot, pointed at me and spat out her words, "That damned little slut, just because my son didn't want her, she's held a grudge and brought people here to kill an old woman like me. My life doesn't matter, but my son is a future college student, he's going to be a high-ranking official someday. Village chief, you must see that justice is done." Zhuang Dongliang glared at me, grinding his teeth. "Li Hemiao. You ignorant fool. Stealing is a crime, don't you understand? You'll go to jail for this, and you lot, you're all going to jail with her." Zhuang Dongliang was utterly smug. "Li Hemiao, we are through. Today, you either get on your knees and apologize, or you can rot in jail." But I wasn't the timid creature he expected. "Paying your debts is only right and proper. I'm taking what's rightfully mine, Mrs. Zhuang stamped her foot with a furious spit. "Bullshit. You think saying it's yours makes it yours. What proof do you have? If it's in my house, it's mine." Meanwhile, Sun Yuling, having regained her nerve, spoke in a shrill, affected voice. "No one is above the law. We're going to report this to the police right now. Li Hemiao, it'll be too late when you try to claim you were just acting like a shrew because you didn't know the law." The village chief, a cigarette tucked behind his ear, also frowned at me. "Hemiao. Do you have any way to prove these things are yours? If you can't prove it, then inciting a riot is absolutely against the law." I said coldly. "Absolutely." 8. Zhuang Dongliang's face turned ashen when I pulled a stack of IOUs from my breast pocket. "I knew you wouldn't throw them away, Li Hemiao. You only got close to me because you were banking on my future success. Your true colors are finally showing. To save face in front of me." Zhuang Dongliang would always put on a show of tossing me an IOU after every round of hinting that he wanted something from me. Not just anyone is worthy of holding an IOU from the Zhuang family. When I make it big one day, these IOUs will be worth enough to buy your whole life twice over. Every time I accepted one of his IOUs, I would casually discard it on the spot to spare Zhuang Dongliang's pride. Let's not talk about debts, I would quietly retrieve them afterwards. Not because I had any grand ambitions for my future, it was because, in my past life, I foolishly believed "buy me for a lifetime" was a rare and precious declaration of love. I treasured these IOUs like love letters, keeping them safe in a cabinet at home. Now, staring at the IOUs he had written with his own hand, Zhuang Dongliang had no choice but to accept them, however furious he might be. Mother Zhuang was about to make a scene, but I shut her down with a single line. "What? Even an intellectual is going to welch on a debt." That successfully silenced her. The commotion from my sisters helping me move my things roused the entire village, drawing a huge, multi-layered crowd of onlookers, watching us clear out the place in one fell swoop. Many onlookers were left stunned and clicking their tongues in disbelief. So all the Zhuang family's belongings were actually provided by Hemiao. Meanwhile, Sun Yuling, standing to the side, wore a puzzled expression as she tugged on Zhuang Dongliang's arm. "Dongliang, what on earth is going on here? Didn't you say your family was once immensely wealthy, in her past life?" It wasn't until Zhuang's mother passed away that Sun Yuling discovered the Zhuang family had been living off her dowry all along. By then, Zhuang Dongliang had already achieved fame and success, and the couple faced no financial pressures. But now, faced with the Zhuang family's stark poverty, Sun Yuling clearly couldn't accept it. No matter how much Zhuang Dongliang insisted he would surely pass the university entrance exams and become a high-ranking official in the future, Sun Yuling still refused to believe him. As the two were grappling with each other, the tense standoff was shattered by the voices of several men. "Yuling, didn't you say the Zhuang family was loaded? They're this poor, how are we supposed to get the money for your brother's wedding?" Sun Yuling's face instantly went deathly pale upon seeing the arrivals. "Dad, what are you doing here?" While moving the stuff earlier, I had already sent a friend to the neighboring village to fetch Sun Yuling's father. Sun Yuling, who usually carried herself like a graceful swan in public, was slapped across the face by her father. "Worthless girl. All you do is paint your face all day. Talking about how many promising men there are at the high school, and in the end, you're tangled up with some penniless loser. I'll beat the uselessness out of you." Sun Yuling was dragged out by her hair by her father. When Zhuang Dongliang tried to intervene, men from the neighboring village knocked him to the ground with a few punches. "You don't have a penny to your name, and you still want to get married, and you call yourself educated, pa." Zhuang Dongliang's face was bruised and livid, staring at the house, now stripped back to its bare walls. He fixed me with a bloodshot, venomous glare. "Li Hemiao, you blind, stupid woman, the day will come when you'll be on your knees begging me." I merely watched him with a cold stare, then pointed at Zhuang Dongliang's brand new olive green trousers. "Take your pants off. I bought the fabric and sewed these trousers myself. I'd rather take them back to cut them up, burn them, or throw them away than leave them for a beast." Zhuang Dongliang's face was beet red, steaming with either rage or humiliation. "Li Hemiao, how dare you tell a strange man to take his clothes off in broad daylight? What utter shamelessness. Your mind is full of filth. A hooligan like you deserves to be arrested and shot." When he said that, he'd probably forgotten his own disgraceful conduct in a past life. 9. The love between a man and a woman is meant to be enduring, but in my past life, whenever I tried to get close to Zhuang Dongliang, he would point his finger at me and berate me. "Do you have any idea how much effort the country puts into cultivating a university student? Do you know how precious my time and experience are? My energy must be devoted to the construction of our motherland, not wasted on the idle flesh of a housewife like you." He scolded me with such self-righteous indignation, as if I were a rat exposed in broad daylight, utterly repulsive. Right there in front of my own corpse, the 60-year-old Zhuang Dongliang was toiling away on top of Li Lingyu, sweating profusely. One moment he was nibbling at her peaks, calling her darling, and the next she was throwing her head back, moaning "Big brother." Their constantly shifting positions and repeated shudders of pleasure are still vivid in my mind, utterly nauseating. Staring at the brazen man before me, I suppressed my disgust and let out a cold sneer. "Stop throwing around execution this and execution that. Do you own the police force or something? You didn't even have the decency to feel ashamed when you said all your classmates had army green pants and demanded I make you a pair. So, wanting back what's rightfully mine makes me a scoundrel." I raised my voice, making sure every single villager present could hear me loud and clear. "Zhuang Dongliang, you look down on me with one breath, yet try to take advantage of me with the next. A hypocrite who bites the hand that feeds him, that's what's truly shameless." After the previous confrontations, Zhuang Dongliang's reputation in the village had already hit rock bottom. Now, the crowd gathered around, jeering and mocking him without pause. "Zhuang Dongliang, so it was you who had your hand out begging for things, and you always go on about being an intellectual. Since when do intellectuals beg young women for green army trousers?" Amid the crowd's roaring laughter, Zhuang Dongliang's face turned beet red. In a fit of pique, he actually stripped off his trousers and shoes right then and there, revealing the patched, red and green long johns underneath. Zhuang Dongliang hurled the pants and rubber shoes at me, stubbornly insisting, "Who wants your worthless trash? Li Hemiao, let me tell you, you're merely the lowest bar for a spouse I'd consider, while I am the mountain peak you could never hope to reach." I paid no mind to his frantic shouting, simply snorted a laugh and walked away. I opened a small shop near the county high school, bringing goods from the south to sell up north. On opening day, old lady Zhuang came to make a scene, calling me a parasite of socialism, until an officer told her, "Ma'am, the country is reforming and opening up now. We encourage private business. If you keep causing trouble here, we'll have no choice but to take you in." Mrs. Zhuang left in a huff, wiggling her hips indignantly. "You shameless hussy. Flaunting yourself on the street, what man would ever want you? Don't come crying and begging for my son later, it'll be too late. Just wait until my son gets into university." While Zhuang's mother was still lost in her pleasant daydream, a police car roared up to the school. Following the officers out of the car was son's father, who began shouting at the top of his lungs the moment his feet hit the ground, "You got my daughter pregnant. Zhuang Dongliang, I'm here to have you arrested. You filthy scoundrel." In her past life, it was also at this time that Sun Yuzhen discovered she was pregnant. During that period, Zhuang Dongliang kept coming home to be with me. He used my money to buy the Sun family's silence, which kept the whole affair from blowing up. Now that the money's run out, the Sun family is naturally unwilling to let it go. I looked at Zhuang's mother with a smile. "Well, looks like your son will have to take his college entrance exams from a prison cell." As my sisters and I sat there, each with a handful of sunflower seeds to crack, Zhuang Dongliang was shoved into the vehicle, his hands pinned behind his back, followed by his wailing mother. That tramp Sun Yuling seduced my son. My son was going to take the university entrance exams. Sun's father kicked her in the head, twice. You old hag, shut your mouth. Auntie Zhuang lay on the ground, clutching her head and looking in my direction with a pained expression. Meow, I'm feeling dizzy. Be a good child and come help your auntie up. Looks like the stroke from my past life decided to come early this time. Listening to Mrs. Zhuang's pleas, I felt nothing inside. I spat out the sunflower seed shell from my lips. You will all pay for my daughter's life. 10. Unexpectedly, Zhuang Dongliang was released again, and even ended up marrying Sun Yuling. Due to Sun Yuling's health condition, she couldn't have an abortion, and the Sun family didn't want 2 more mouths to feed, but the Sun family insisted on a bride price of 50 yuan, threatening to have Zhuang Dongliang thrown in jail even if it meant beating Sun Yuzhen to death. Zhuang's mother was bedridden, lying in her own filth. While Zhuang Dongliang desperately tried to borrow money, only to be blocked at his door by debt collectors, it turned out that Zhuang's mother had mortgaged their house to save face and scrape together tuition for Zhuang Dongliang. I lent you that money because I believed you'd get into university, but the news about you getting that girl pregnant at school is all over town. The school expelled you. If we don't take the house now, we'll be left with a bad debt. Pressured relentlessly by the Zhang family and his creditors, Zhuang Dongliang was so frantic he broke out in cold sores. He even had the nerve to ask me for a loan. My shop is booming. I don't have time for his troubles. He just kept squatting by the door, waiting for me to close up shop, watching me count the bills one by one. Zhuang Dongliang couldn't hide the disappointment in his eyes. He thought to himself, why didn't I have this kind of drive in my past life? But I've always had it. It's just that the road is clear of that damn stumbling block now. Meow, for old time's sake, please give me a hand. Look at all that money you've got. I only need half the money in my Yang Yang's hand. I do have money, but why on earth should I lend it to you? Zhuang Dongliang's breath reeked of foul heat. Not a trace of the refined scholar's handsomeness remained. He looked like a desperate gambler at the end of his rope. Listen, Meow, just promise to lend me the money, and I'll marry you. You don't see it, but I do. If I can just get through this immediate crisis, I will get into university. My future is bright. I'm telling you, I swear to heaven. With that, he actually knelt down before me, raising 3 fingers to the sky. A thunderclap suddenly tore through the cloudless sky. Watching Zhuang Dongliang, who looked like he was about to wet himself, I let out a cold laugh. See that? Even the heavens can't stand the wicked things you've done. I patted his cheek with the stack of cash. Zhuang Dongliang, stop dreaming. There's no university for you, no high position. All you have is a pregnant woman and a bedridden old mother. Zhuang Dongliang, this is your fate. As I spared him and walked away, the sound of Zhuang Dongliang's bitter, resentful weeping followed me. Zhuang Dongliang still married Sun Yuling. Their house was seized by creditors, and he sold off all the ancestral land. The family of 3 ended up on the streets, forced to take shelter in a half-collapsed shack in the village. Zhuang Dongliang was no good at manual labor, and at first, his pride wouldn't let him stoop so low, but with his own mother on the brink of starvation, he was finally driven out by Sun Yuzhen's frantic, hoarse shouts to go beg for food. By the time he reached the front of my shop, Zhuang Dongliang's face was etched with the weariness of a life of hardship. He wore a faint, ingratiating smile as he tried to straighten his grimy clothes. Bossly, I heard from the folks in the village that you've opened a new branch. Look, I've got nothing better to do anyway, and I'm good with numbers. I can keep your books, I'll handle your accounts, you pay me whatever you think is fair, and that house of yours in the village, sitting empty with nobody in it, I could have my mother and my wife move in to look after the place for you. Maybe you never went to school and can't do the math, but we can't trust this ledger to just anyone. All the sisters who started out with me are now living the high life. Where did this stinking beggar come from? Get lost. Don't make us late for night school. I never once looked Zhuang Dongliang in the eye before I left. The next I heard of Zhuang Dongliang, he had gone mad. After a quarrel, Zhuang Dongliang stabbed his wife to death. He even ripped the unborn child from her womb and hacked it to pieces. He slit his own mother's throat too, and as he cut his own throat, he kept muttering something about wanting a second chance. Right, and he even had the nerve to say he'd marry you if he could do it all over again. Meow, how did a perfectly normal person just go crazy like that? Watching the villagers click their tongues in disapproval, I shook my head with a light chuckle. My new shop opens today. Eat and drink to your heart's content. Let's not bring up any of that bad luck. The clinking of wine glasses filled the air, and I wondered if Zhuang Dongliang would ever get a second chance. All I know is that in this lifetime, I will live each day to the fullest and find my happiness. That's all for the first story. Don't go away. The next one is even more thrilling. after Jiang Yan's beloved white moonlight was in a car accident. He insisted on bringing her home to care for her. I wasn't making a fuss, I agreed without hesitation. He looked genuinely moved and said, "There's nothing between us. I just want to ensure she's well provided for and cared for in her remaining years. Please don't read too much into it." I didn't dare think about it at all. I just wanted to get out of there as soon as possible. You see, in 7 days, I would die from overwork. On the day of the funeral, he went and married his white moonlight. I'm dying, the moment I was reborn. This truth took over my entire rational mind. So when Jiang Yan flew into a rage again, demanding to bring his white moonlight back to live with us, I didn't put up a fight, agreed, go pick them up, quickly. In the grand scheme of life, everything else is trivial. At 55, what's left to be hung up on? These days, I just want to keep my head down and survive. Jiang Yan was stunned, with a look of disbelief. He recovered himself and spoke awkwardly, his tone flat. Xiao Mei is crippled now. I'm the only one she can rely on. There's no other way. I gave a perfunctory nod. I fished the health insurance card out of my bag. Let's go. You're coming with me. His eyes widened, as if he didn't recognize me. You have to understand, just half an hour ago, I was acting like a complete shrew, refusing to budge an inch. I can't be bothered with the small talk. I'm out of here. On the way to the hospital, Jiang Yan's face was expressionless, and he remained completely silent. But through the rearview mirror, seeing him repeatedly rubbing his palms together, I knew he was deeply agitated. It was that ineffable joy of a hard-fought struggle finally culminating in a dream come true. After 35 years of marriage, I know the meaning behind his every little gesture. I gave a self-deprecating laugh, drove the car into the hospital, and headed straight for the emergency room. After getting out, Jiang Yan grabbed my arm and said urgently, "Wrong way, Xiao Mei is in the inpatient ward." I scoffed and shook him off. "You go pick her up yourself. I feel like I'm dying. I want to get checked out and see what's wrong with me." I'm not that magnanimous. To personally drive his white moonlight home, coming to the hospital was just to get a full checkup. Jiang Yan looked me up and down, scolding angrily. "You just fainted from the shock, that's all. You came to in 2 minutes. There's nothing wrong with you. I thought you genuinely accepted Xiao Mei. I never imagined you'd curse yourself just to make me feel guilty." I shook my head. "You're overthinking it. Don't worry, I won't stand in your way." In my past life, I objected vehemently, but it was useless in the end. I've already died once, for all intents and purposes. It's time to rein in the emotional brain and make the most rational choice. In this life, I've decided to let them have their way. I spent the whole day at the hospital, getting all sorts of scans done. Finally, the doctor concluded, aside from slightly high blood pressure, there's nothing wrong. At your age, it's important to get plenty of rest. I let out a sigh of relief, thankful it wasn't cancer. I was just worried there might be some underlying condition that could trigger other illnesses. By the time I left the hospital and got home, it was completely dark outside. As soon as I opened the door, I was met with a burst of laughter from inside. The laughter stopped dead the moment they saw me. My daughter, Jiang Lan, stood up from the sofa, looking displeased. "Mom, where have you been? You knew Aunt May was coming to stay, and you still didn't get the room ready." I took a deep breath and barely managed to stop myself from slapping her. The daughter I carried for 9 months, my little treasure, is now siding with another woman against me. All that suffering was for nothing. Seeing I didn't respond, Xiao Mei gave a bitter smile and wheeled her chair over. "Sister Zhou, I'm sorry for causing you trouble. I'll leave right now." Jiang Yan's face instantly darkened. He pointed at me and started yelling. "Xiao Mei is at the end of her rope. Can't you show a little compassion? Are you trying to drive her to her death?" My own expression turned grim. On our wedding anniversary, Jiang Yan and I had made plans to go out for dinner. But he stood her up. It was all because Xiao Mei had returned from abroad and wanted to see him. But she was unexpectedly injured in a car accident on the way, ultimately resulting in an amputation. Jiang Yan was filled with guilt, believing he was the one who had caused the tragedy. By sheer coincidence, Xiao Mei had swapped seats with him before getting on the vehicle, and that ended up saving his life. Jiang Yan started trying to persuade me, wanting to bring her into our home so I could wait on her. But why on earth should I? She's not my savior. Why on earth should I be her maid? I disagreed, and Jiang Yan immediately gave me the cold shoulder. Today, we had another fierce argument over this, and I was so furious I fainted. When I woke up again, I found I had been reborn. He not only knew what would happen 7 days later, but was also fully aware of everything that occurred before the burial. Fine, I'll leave. Is that good enough? To have lived most of my life, only to end up having to make room for someone else. How pathetic. Walking into the bedroom, he saw his own clothes thrown on the floor, exactly as he had expected, hurriedly cramming things into the suitcase. As she stood up, The sight of the vibrant jasmine flowers on the bedside table and the brand new sheets clawed at her heart. Jiang Yan always claimed to have low emotional intelligence, saying he wasn't a smooth talker and didn't know the first thing about romance. Yet, he remembered that Xiaomei adored jasmine flowers above all else. Some people aren't incapable, they're just heartless. What are you sulking about now? If you leave, who's going to take care of Xiaomei? Jiang Yan grabbed me and wouldn't let me leave. Mom, Dad and I both have to work. You're the only one at home with nothing to do, just idling around all day. You can cook at home and keep Aunt May company for a chat. Words come easily. My daughter looked at me as if I were a petulant child. In my past life, I gave in. I took on the responsibility of caring for Xiaomei, and it ended in a miserable death. All I want now is a quiet, easy life. Since you two are so in love, you can take care of each other yourselves. With that, she pulled the divorce papers from her bag and flung them in Jiang Yan's face. Sign this. You can take your caring all the way to the bedroom for all I care. No one's stopping your little love fest. Jiang Yan's face darkened instantly. Suppressing his rage, he bent down to pick up the paper from the floor. A glance at it made his face turn pale with shock. You're insane, he said. I'm not. I just want to survive. They drove him to an early grave with all their nonsense. Xiaomei is no spring chicken. Yet she's still playing the damsel in distress, wanting to have her cake and eat it too, day in and day out. She's been making accusations behind my back, claiming I'm starving her and treating her badly. Jiang Yan called me an ungrateful wretch. He said, if it weren't for Xiaomei saving me, you might have become a widow. Have you no conscience? I have no heart. My conscience was eaten by a dog. So, let's get this divorce over with, pronto. Getting married is easy, but getting a divorce is harder than the trials of the monk Tang Sanzang. The negotiation failed. Undeterred, I just checked into a hotel. I'll never be anyone's servant. First, you've got to survive, and survive for a long, long time. When I finally woke up around noon, the hotel front desk called to say I had visitors. Unsurprisingly, it was a father and his daughter. Jiang Yan was a key technical expert at the factory. After retiring, he was rehired to continue contributing his skills and making a difference in society. My daughter has a job too, and she's swamped every single day. Whenever I ask them to accompany me to the hospital, they always say they don't have the time. They even tell me that although I'm getting older, I should keep up with the times, learn from the younger generation, pick up the necessary skills, and not always rely on bothering others. It's a miracle they both skipped work on the same day. My daughter saw me fuming with anger. Mom, you're at your age, running away from home. Aren't you afraid people will laugh at you? Let them laugh, whatever. After a lifetime of living under the scrutiny of others, it's time to break free from society's shackles and live according to my own ideas. I sat back comfortably and lazily on the sofa, feeling a bit hungry. The server came in just then with the meal and set the dishes on the table. My daughter's eyes widened in disbelief. Mom, you're actually willing to splurge on something this nice? I ignored her and kept my head down, focusing on my meal. Today, I ordered a lot of delicacies I'd always craved but couldn't bring myself to spend money on, like an Australian lobster. In the past, if my daughter or her father wanted something or craved a certain food, no matter how expensive, we'd grit our teeth and buy it for them. When it was my turn, I'd always tell myself not to be greedy, not to take too much. I habitually put myself last every single time. They just took it for granted. And looking back, I feel I really sold myself short. Now that I indulge my cravings, my happiness level is shooting straight up. No more penny pinching. Spend when you need to spend. In the past, the money was left unspent, but the person ended up in a coffin, filled with bitter regret. Showing, it's just about looking after Xiaomei a little. It's such a small thing. At our age, there's no need to make such an ugly scene. Jiang Yan's implication was that I was making a mountain out of a molehill. I scoffed. It's your choice. Either we get a divorce, or you send Xiaomei away. Pick one. Still trying to control me. In your damn dreams. Jiang Yan doesn't smoke, doesn't drink, and isn't violent. He's the model husband and father, at least according to the neighbors. What they don't know is that he never lifts a finger around the house, acting like a lord of the manor. Getting him to do anything requires endless pleading and sweet talking, and even then, he just drags his feet. He always mops with one hand, never wipes the water stains off the counter, and perpetually leaves things just one step short of being finished. I couldn't take it anymore and yelled at him, which led to rumors outside that I have a bad temper. He gets all the credit for being the good one, while I'm left with all the blame. I've toiled like an ox my whole life, thinking I could just endure it and get by, treating him as nothing more than a co-parenting partner, and in the end, you hit me with a sucker punch. If I can't take it anymore, then I won't. Let's just call it quits. Don't push your luck. Jiang Yan's shouting was so loud it made my ears ache. I frowned. Look, our daughter is grown and doesn't need our care anymore. We don't have many days left ourselves. Wouldn't it be better to spend the rest of our lives the way we want to? When I was young, I lived according to my parents' wishes. In adulthood, one is swept along into marriage by societal pressure. After having children, even if the relationship is hollow, people often turn a blind eye and feign ignorance, striving to maintain appearances. Social conventions and prejudices act like an invisible dagger, confining many within rigid frameworks. They live their lives by the book, trapped by their own habitual thinking, given a second chance at life. I want to break free from these shackles and live as my true self. Mom, if you get a divorce, where does that leave my reputation? People will laugh at me. I shot back immediately. What's your reputation even worth? Don't get so full of yourself. Why should we live our lives constrained by other people's opinions, forcing ourselves to suffer? I realized this truth far too late. Fortunately, it's not too late to set things right. With my stomach full, I took a cup of tea and sat down opposite Jiang Yan. He remained silent. All I could do was try to reason with him, so I began to plead earnestly. After we divorce, you'll be free to do whatever you want, even be with Chiamei. Jiang Yan straightened up slightly, his index finger pressing tightly against his thumb. I could tell he was somewhat swayed. Keep up the encouragement. For example, you're always saying you want to climb Mount Tai. Chiamei certainly won't stop you. With all that joint pain and still trying to act young and refuse to accept his age, let him dig his own grave. It's best to avoid doing things where your kindness is thrown back in your face. I took the agreement out of my bag. Sign it. I've got plenty of these in my bag. I printed 20 copies, ready to reclaim my freedom at a moment's notice. You keep the house, I'll take the cash. No one's getting the short end of the stick. Jiang Yan stared at me, dumbfounded. It seemed he finally understood I wasn't putting on an act. I genuinely wanted a divorce. He hesitated instead. Dad, Aunt May is here. Just then, the door was suddenly pushed open. Looking at the two people at the door, I felt a tumult of emotions. My daughter just took a phone call. I thought she had to leave for some urgent matter, but it turns out she went to pick someone up. That's why my daughter is so close to Chiamei. It's because Jiang Yan, behind my back, has been taking her to see Chiamei every year. Over time, she's grown to confide in her completely and treats her like her own mother. After 35 years of raising you, I get no credit, only blame. To say I'm not heartbroken would be a lie. Moreover, she was fully aware of Chiamei's true identity. Brother Jiang, it's all my fault for causing trouble in your family because of me. Looking at the agreement on the table with self-reproach, Chiamei said, you should just send me back to America. My husband and son are both gone, and my daughter-in-law has vanished with my grandchild, with no one to rely on. Am I supposed to go back to America and beg on the streets? What a clever tactical retreat. Dad, you promised you'd look after Aunt May. His daughter grew anxious. She turned and yelled at me. Mom, Aunt May is such a good person. Why can't you just accept her? You're so cruel. Trembling with rage, I slapped her across the face. If you care about her so much, then you take care of her, support her, and wait on her like she's your own mother. Recalling the events of my past life felt like a pain that gnawed at my very bones. Back when I was taking care of Chiamei, she repeatedly engaged in these inhumane acts, deliberately smashing cups on the floor, cutting her own hands, burning holes in the sheets, and so on. And then, she had the nerve to claim that it was me who was resentful, that I was the one smashing things, destroying property, and tormenting her. The worst part is, her father and daughter were completely blind to the truth, believing every word she said. I'm not just physically exhausted, I'm mentally shattered, on the verge of suffocation. You want a divorce, and now you're pushing our daughter away too. Jiang Yan looked at me as if I'd lost my mind. I responded with icy detachment. I want neither you nor her anymore. Father and daughter froze, their expressions going blank, their composure completely shattered. Jiang Yan finally signed the document. As I walked out the door with all my luggage, even the air tasted of freedom. My daughter grabbed my hand, her expression panicked. Mom, could you leave me some money? I said with a blank face. Adults should stand on their own 2 feet. If you want money, go ask your father. Not only did she choose to side with Jiang Yan, she even declared she would support Chiamei in her old age, caring for her as if she were her own mother. In the end, my heart isn't made of iron, it can ache too. Why pay for being treated poorly? I'm not a masochist. Only after spending 7 safe days in a 5-star hotel did I finally breathe a sigh of relief. As expected, cutting ties with that toxic person was the best way to save my own skin. For the next few days, I was out looking for a place to rent. After the Lantern Festival, I found a 2-bedroom apartment. It was move-in ready, close to the school, and located in a desirable school district. On the first day of the new semester, I went into the school to teach my students. I am a university professor. Having retired not long ago, the university had offered to rehire me to continue teaching, but I declined at the time. I'm only coming back now to kill time. Honestly, if you just stay at home doing nothing, your mind will turn to mush. Scrolling through your phone all day just leaves you feeling emptier. Because you can't find any sense of purpose, boredom acts like a combine harvester, reaping everyone's vitality and spirit. On my way home after class, I ran into an acquaintance, Xiaowei. Spotting me, she rushed over in delight, exclaiming, "Auntie Zhou." Her voice cracked with excitement. Xiaowei was a student I had sponsored in the past. It all started when she posted on Zaya Hongshu, saying she had lost both parents due to her family's poverty. Her older brother and his wife had no choice but to send her out to work. However, she was an excellent student with a strong desire to continue her education, and she was at a loss for what to do. After looking into her situation, I found her story to be true, so I began sponsoring her education starting from middle school, and continued all the way through her graduation from high school. "Auntie Zhou, I'm just going to fetch something. Wait here for me, won't you?" With that, she dashed off like a gust of wind. When she returned, she was carrying a nylon bag on her back. She was flushed and sweating from the run. "These are some local specialties I brought from my hometown. I was actually planning to bring them to your house." She handed it over with a hint of bashfulness. I took it, opened it for a look, and said with a beaming smile, "I love your family's cured meat and dried vegetables the most." Her eyes suddenly lit up like the brightest star hanging in the Milky Way, dazzling and radiant. Xiaowei picked up the bag, offering to help carry it home. After I declined, she seemed a little disappointed, but I quickly perked up again. "Auntie Zhou, I'll be off then. See you tomorrow." After a few steps, she turned back to wave at me, her steps as light and bouncy as an adorable little bunny. I shook my head with a wry smile and headed home, carrying the heavy bags. Stepping out of the elevator, I found Jiang Lan pacing impatiently in front of the door. After stepping inside, she glanced at the nylon bag in the corner and pursed her lips in disapproval. Students these days don't even know to bring something worthwhile. I didn't want to argue with her, so I just started tidying up the cured meats and other items. Jiang Lan didn't move, just sat on the sofa, her face etched with exhaustion. "Dad's sick, and Aunt May has no one to look after her. Since it's the weekend, Mom, could you go back and help me out for a couple of days?" She completely ignored what I meant and said it like an order. I was so angry I could only laugh. I just can't fathom how she had the nerve to say that. "No, called me first thing this morning saying they missed me. Turns out they just wanted me to come back and be a free nanny." Jiang Lan shot up from her seat. "Mom, not only do I have to look after Dad, I also have to do Aunt May's laundry and cooking. I'm exhausted. Can't you have a little sympathy for? Are you leaving me when I was at home taking care of both of them? Did anyone ever show me any compassion? A live-in nanny these days costs nearly 10,000 a month. After decades of sacrifice for this family, who even remembers the good I've done?" I heard Jiang Yan quit his job to stay home and take care of Qiamei full-time. When I asked why they didn't just hire a nanny, Jiang Lan rolled her eyes. "What kind of genuine care can you buy with money? Humph. I never got this kind of treatment before. When I was sick, I was left alone in bed with no one to take care of me. The father and daughter still treat me like I'm some kind of superhero with self-healing powers. From now on, don't come to me with anything about Qiamei. She and I have nothing to do with each other." Jiang Lan returned in defeat, and as she left, she spat out a final threat. "Don't come begging for my help when you get sick." I remained silent. Truth be told, I had long given up on this daughter of mine. I didn't make a point of telling people about my divorce. People saw me keeping to myself, and when a curious colleague asked, I mentioned it offhand. The news spread throughout the entire school in no time, and opinions were divided. Some said that getting divorced at my age, they wondered how I would manage from here on out, yet some admired my courage and voiced their agreement. I didn't care whether it was sympathy or schadenfreude. Who knows if tomorrow or an accident will come first. Better to live in the present and worry about the future later. Despite all the gossip, Xiaowei still kept showing up around me. After learning about my divorce, she would even drop by from time to time to help me clean and keep me company. Everyone said she was trying to curry favor with me, hoping to get something out of it. I just laughed it off when I heard that. I have been supporting Xiaowei for 6 years. When filling out her college application, she chose the school where I teach without a second thought. The first time we met, with tears in her eyes, she said emotionally, "Auntie Zhou, I can't repay you right now. I just want to be closer to you." She is a fiercely independent young woman. When she went to university, she absolutely refused to let me help financially and instead took out a national student loan. She's actually incredibly busy, she has virtually no free time. She used to work as a private tutor off campus to earn some living expenses. Nowadays, she works as a photographer for others. I heard the work she posted online got a great response, and she's gained a lot of followers. She's practically a micro-influencer. I both admire and respect her. Getting from a rural village into a top-tier city university required not just sheer perseverance, but an unyielding, never-say-die spirit. Time flew by, and before we knew it, graduation season was upon us. I was wondering how to kill time during the summer break. To my surprise, Xiaowei invited me to go on a trip with her. I frowned upon hearing that. She seemed to sense my hesitation. She playfully leaned in and whispered in my ear, "Auntie Zhou, I have money now. I promised you when I was little that I'd take you traveling." When she was a kid, she'd always call me on my sister-in-law's beat-up old phone. She made me all sorts of promises back then. I never took it seriously, but it seems she's kept it in her heart all this time. Xiaowei and I agreed that our first stop would be Yunnan. The night before I was set to leave, Jiang Lan came to see me unexpectedly. Hesitantly, she said, "Mom, Haozi says he wants to get married. What do you think I should do?" "Make your own decision, just don't regret it." After my daughter's divorce, she went back to messing around with her ex-boyfriend, completely ignoring my objections. Haozi is a good-for-nothing layabout, without a proper job, a real loser, and of all people, Jiang Lan is a hopeless romantic. A few sweet words from someone, and she's ready to give them her whole heart. I intervened once before, arranging a marriage with a suitable match from a good family, so she could have a grand, respectable wedding. It's a shame she couldn't get over her first love, and it ended up ruining her marriage. I don't want to deal with it at all now. Whatever happens, happens. Perhaps only after being hurt, shedding tears, and hitting a brick wall will she finally come to her senses. Jiang Lan was stunned, finding it somewhat hard to accept. I asked, dazed, "Mom, you used to try to talk me out of it. Why not now?" I took a sip of water and didn't answer. Instead, I gave the order to leave. "If there's nothing else, you should go." What more is there to say about a topic that's been nagged about for years? Even if she's not annoyed, I'm already fed up. Jiang Lan's face suddenly darkened, a cold sneer curling at the corner of her lips. "Aunt May was right about you. You just don't want me to be happy. You don't want me to marry the one I love. Well, I'm going to marry him anyway." I clutched my chest, feeling a suffocating tightness. "Go, just go. Don't come back. I'll pretend I never had you. Since you're such an ungrateful wretch, it's time to cut ties for good. Who will you have to rely on when you're old without me? I'm your only family." That arrogant look on your face only made the ache in my chest worse. "Get out." After they left, my heart was still pounding uncomfortably fast. With trembling hands, I dialed 120 for an ambulance, and then called Xiaowei. I was rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment, but thankfully, it was a close call with no serious harm. Xiaowei was leaning over my bedside, sobbing uncontrollably. She said, "Auntie Zhou, please let me move in with you. I'm just too worried about you to leave you alone." My heart ached, yet it was also deeply touched. This whole incident taught me a valuable lesson. Everyone says you raise children to provide for you in old age, but if your children are unfilial, they come not to repay kindness, but to exact revenge. After recuperating for half a month, I finally went to Yunnan with Xiaowei. She took photos for me, we sampled all kinds of delicious food, immersed ourselves in the local life, and even met many travel influencers. Every day is a wonderful adventure. Seeing how happy I was, Xiaowei came bounding over with her camera, beaming from ear to ear. "Auntie Zhou, what do you say we head to the next city? Look, we've gained more followers. They're asking me to film you more. They absolutely love watching you." I looked at the comments section, feeling a complex mix of emotions I couldn't quite put into words. Ever since Xiaowei shared the story of how we met online, everyone's been calling me Zhou the Benevolent. They say I gave her a leg up, helping her step onto a bigger stage and start a new chapter in her life. Everyone has been expressing their gratitude for my act of kindness. If anyone is credited with pulling Xiaowei out of the mire, it's me. But really, the person she should thank most is herself. If it weren't for the awards plastered all over the mud wall, or the deep longing in her eyes, I probably wouldn't have sponsored her. After all, money doesn't grow on trees. If you put something in, you should get something back. Though, I never expected to get anything from her. My original intention was simply to add a bit more feminine strength to society. Let's go to Wuzhen next. I've wanted to go to this place for ages, but it's a shame I have no one to go with. Xiaowei nodded with a grin. I thought for a moment and asked her, "Are you sure I don't need to pay?" It's a bit embarrassing to admit, but I haven't spent a single penny the whole time. According to Xiaowei, the story and pictures went viral online as soon as they were posted, brands were practically throwing money at us, all clamoring to place ads and ride the wave of traffic. Money keeps rolling in every day, so there's no need to worry about running out of cash. You just relax and enjoy yourself. I'll cover all your food and lodging, and I'll even cut you in on the profits later. Xiao Wei wrapped her arm around mine affectionately, laughing without a care in the world. The bright sunlight fell on her face, making her look exceptionally beautiful. She's a completely different person compared to the timid woman she was 10 years ago. I sighed inwardly, shaking my head with a wry smile. No need to split the money. I have my pension and savings, so I'm not short on funds. Just as I was out enjoying myself, completely losing track of time, my ex-husband called. He sounded a bit displeased. Your daughter is getting married, you should come back for the wedding. I refused without a second thought. 2 weeks ago, Jiang Lan called me asking for money. She didn't mince words. Mom, I need at least 300,000 for the wedding. I hung up on her right then and there. I gave her the benefit of the doubt. For my first marriage, I gave a dowry of 400,000. And now for the second marriage, she's trying to fleece me again. After the divorce, I never heard a single word of concern from her. Someone who only knows how to take and never gives back. No one will put up with that kind of selfishness, even if she is my own daughter. Xiao Wei and I traveled everywhere and never went back to teaching. This is the best of times. I get to have fun every day, post photos and videos online, run a few ads, and the money just rolls in. It's not like the old days of working diligently and saving up bit by bit. The opportunities created by the internet haven't just provided a living, they've also connected me with people from all walks of life. I've also tried so many things I never would have before, and most importantly, it's broadened my horizons. I finally made it home just before the Lunar New Year. The very next day, my ex-husband showed up at my door. He looked me up and down, his expression a mix of emotions. Since leaving me, not only are you doing better, but your life seems full and vibrant. I just smiled without saying a word. After Jiang Lan's actions landed me in the hospital, I blocked both her and her father's numbers immediately. Once they realized, they had no choice but to call me from other people's phones. Jiang Yan has definitely come across my content online. I mean, I'm somewhat of a micro-influencer now, so a lot of my relatives and friends know about it. I leaned against the doorframe and told him to cut to the chase and just state his business. Jiang Yan had changed a great deal. He was hunched over, as if carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. His clothes hung loosely on his frame, baggy and empty, as thin as a rake. He looked a full 10 years older, a world away from his former self. It seems he's been having a very hard time. Your daughter is ill, you should go and see her. I don't want to go. Even after half a year, I still can't forget the agony of being on the brink of death. I was gasping for air and collapsed on the couch, yet she turned a blind eye. Whether she's doing well or not now is none of my concern. I refused to go, but Jiang Yan insisted on picking a fight with me. He just wouldn't leave. I was so fed up, I had no choice but to go to the hospital. Jiang Lan saw me, and tears started streaming down my face. She rolled up her sleeve, revealing the bruised skin beneath. Mom, Hauzi is a monster. Apart from her face, which was untouched, her body was covered in horrific injuries. He didn't just abuse me at home, he also gambled and swindled me out of all my money. I have nothing left. As she spoke, she broke down into heart-wrenching sobs. Mom, I really regret it. If I had listened to you back then, I wouldn't have been pinned to the ground and beaten. After hearing her tearful story, I fell silent. Jiang Yan had previously told me the whole story of what happened. After the young couple got married, they enjoyed a period of newlywed bliss, but the good times didn't last. One day, debt collectors showed up at the door, saying Hauzi owed a large sum of money. Hauzi's gambling problem was exposed. When Jiang Lan confronted him, he tried to sweet-talk and placate her at first. Later, he simply dropped the act, showed his true colors, and would hit her whenever he was displeased. The relationship between the two grew increasingly tense, and their fights became more and more vicious. I let out a cold, scornful laugh upon hearing it. A person can keep up a pretense for a while, but not for a lifetime. Now that they had successfully deceived and won the person over, they felt invincible and dropped the act completely. Jiang Lan could have avoided this pitfall. It's a shame she didn't listen to my advice. And now look where she's ended up. I don't feel the slightest bit sorry for her. In fact, I want to yell, serves her right. Wait until Jiang Lan has calmed down. I didn't mince words and got straight to the point. You should get a divorce. She stared at me blankly, hesitating. Mom, I'm pregnant. Get an abortion. A clean break is better than a lingering pain. A child born into a family like this would never be happy. A useless mother. A gambling father. A broken home, it's starting life on the hardest difficulty, just thinking about it makes my skin crawl. I want to keep this child. Hearing that, I stopped trying to persuade her. I knew she wasn't ready to give up. She couldn't accept that her final choice was a mistake, and she still hoped to use their child to reach a man with no heart. While most men in this world are inherently selfish, bound by morality, they do have their limits. Expecting a gambler to turn over a new leaf is nothing short of a pipe dream. As I reached the doorway, I ran into Jiang Yan pushing Chiamei inside. When Chiamei saw me, a flicker of displeasure passed through her eyes. She offered a thin, insincere smile. Jianlan is far too willful. What married woman visits her parents' home every single day? Sister Zhou, you really must talk some sense into her. I ignored her and turned to glare at my ex-husband. Your daughter was beaten to this state. Why didn't you call the police? Jiang Yan stammered. She wouldn't settle down and live properly, always making a scene and disturbing the whole household. Chiamei said family scandals shouldn't be aired in public. We couldn't call the police. I looked at the father and daughter, lost for words. If I hadn't kept a lid on this, Jiang Lan's reputation would have been ruined long ago. She took 200,000 from brother Jiang, spent every day fooling around with Haozi. The two of them didn't work, just lived off that money, and only started making trouble when it ran out. How old is she? Still trying to mooch off her parents. No amount of family money would be enough for her to squander, Chiamei said with a sarcastic, disdainful sneer. Jianlan completely lost it when she heard that. She leapt out of bed and started screaming. Why can't I have my father's money? You do nothing all day. All you have to do is spread your legs, put on a fake cry. And my father showers you with cash. What kind of trash are you? Anyway, I was utterly speechless. They used to be as close as mother and daughter. So how did they end up fighting like mortal enemies? It's only been half a year, but how people and situations have changed is beyond anything I could have imagined. Chiamei was so furious she nearly fainted, with tears welling in her eyes. She tilted her head back at a 45-degree angle and cried out plaintively, Brother Jiang. The lingering note hung in the air, melting the listener's heart. Jiang Lan pointed a finger right at her face and scolded, You're not getting any younger, yet you're cooing like that. It's disgusting. If you love acting so much, why don't you go into showbiz and star in a drama where a domineering CEO falls for my stepmother? A heavy silence fell over the room after those words. Jiang Lan's bizarre outburst made the atmosphere unbearably awkward. Jiang Yan led the others in a swift evacuation. I stayed behind, not wanting to miss the drama, so I asked Jiang Lan what had been going on lately and why she was at each other's throats with Chiamei. She sighed and began to explain the reason. It turned out that, unable to get money from me, Jiang Lan had gone to pester her ex-husband. Jiang Yan had planned to sell his 4-bedroom apartment, buy a 2-bedroom one instead, and give her half of the leftover money, but Chiamei jumped in, absolutely refusing to go along with it. She said what kind of daughter keeps taking money from her parents' home? With her attitude, they couldn't count on her for support in their old age anyway. Jiang Yan took her words to heart and didn't press the matter further. In the end, they barely managed to scrape together 200,000 for the dowry. The bride's family had no money, and the groom's side was even poorer, penniless, to be exact. The wedding was a shabby affair, and it became the subject of hushed gossip for a long time. Mom, every time I go back home, she gives me the cold shoulder and is constantly whispering in Dad's ear, turning him against me. Jiang Lan started crying again as she spoke, her words broken by sobs. They say when you get a stepmother, you get a stepfather too. They were absolutely right about that. I must have been blind to have treated her like my own mother. I let out a sigh. You reap what you sow. I have no one to blame but myself. I said nothing more, only told her to focus on recovering. She couldn't bear to abort the child, yet she couldn't stand on her own 2 feet. No one could help her. After resting at home for a day, I had planned to go out and buy some New Year's goods, but I never made it. Jiang Lan arrived, the moment she stepped inside. She fell to her knees before me, wailing and howling, Mom, I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Please, you have to help me. No sooner had the words left my mouth than I heard footsteps behind me. I looked up and saw my so-called good son-in-law, Haozi. He wore a cheeky, ingratiating smile. Mom, you look younger every day. Jiang Lan saw him and cowered behind me in terror, sobbing, Mom, he tied me up and tortured me. Couples fight, but they always make up, isn't that right, Mom? That shameless, unrepentant look on his face was infuriating. I really don't want to deal with this messy business. If we don't settle this today, nobody's getting any peace. Without another word, I pulled out my phone and called the police. Haozi panicked. Mom, we were just fooling around. I couldn't be bothered to argue with him. Having the police station right downstairs was actually a key selling point when we bought the place. It guarantees personal safety, the officer arrived quickly. After hearing the whole story, he took the guy away and told us to come down to the station later to give our statements. I turned to Jiang Lan and said, if you don't want to stay with him, go straight to the hospital to get your injuries documented, get a medical report and gather all the evidence, then you can file for divorce. She nearly cried herself into a faint, sobbing, I'm done, I can't take this divorce anymore. Her disheveled hair clung to her bruised face, making her look utterly wretched. Mom, I'm sorry, I was such a fool, I never should have divorced Qin Shun. She clenched her fists tightly, overwhelmed by a wave of bitter regret. I withdrew my hand, looked at her broken finger, and had nothing to say. Qin Shun was my carefully chosen son-in-law, and he used to be my student. He's an 8 out of 10 in looks, a college graduate, comes from a good family, and knows exactly how to conduct himself. After catching Jiang Lan cheating, he didn't make a scene. Instead, he knelt before me and said with self-reproach, Professor, I'm sorry, I can't give your daughter the happiness she deserves. When we divorced, Jiang Lan wanted to split the assets, but I stopped her. As the party at fault, how could she have the nerve to claim what belongs to others? My sole wish was to find a family of equal social standing for my daughter. This way, not only are their family backgrounds and education levels similar, but their core values also tend to align, allowing the small family to thrive in the long run. Unfortunately, Jiang Lan did not appreciate it. Her marrying down did not bring the happiness she imagined. Instead, it backfired, leaving her utterly devastated. But all of this was what she deserved. I recommended a highly competent divorce lawyer to Jiang Lan. I wasn't involved in what happened next. By the time the dust settled, a month had already passed. Housie was sent to do a year of hard labor for abuse. After this incident, Jiang Lan had a complete awakening and decided not to remarry. She wanted to move in with me, but I refused. I haven't lost my memory, those hurts are still etched in my mind, never forgotten. With just 2 days left until New Year's Eve, Xiaowei suddenly showed up. Her brother, sister-in-law, and their 5-year-old twin sons all came along. Arriving at the door with a pile of gifts, Xiaowei said with a grin, Auntie Zhou, we'll celebrate the new year at your place this year, and next year at ours. The more, the merrier. You won't kick us out, will you? The family of 5 all put on long faces, each feigning pitifulness. I was utterly willing and deeply moved. On this important day of reunion, they traveled a great distance, all for my sake. They made me truly believe that human nature is fundamentally good. On the 29th, we went shopping in a large, bustling group. When we arrived at the entrance to the women's clothing section of the big mall, we found people arguing. As I got closer, I was taken aback to see it was my ex-husband with his new family. Xiaomei was in a rather sorry state at that moment. Her wheelchair had toppled over, and she lay on the ground with no one helping her up, all because Jiang Yan and his daughter were in the middle of a heated argument. After listening for a moment, I realized Xiaomei wanted to buy a coat that cost 5,000 yuan. Jiang Lan refused. She jumped up, pointing at Xiaomei on the floor, and said, have you no shame? A little flower like you has the nerve to wear such expensive clothes. Jiang Yan's face flushed red, and he remained silent. Under the weight of everyone's pointed stares, Xiaomei buried her face in her chest in mortification. I didn't go over to say hello, deciding instead to find another shop to buy clothes. But Jiang Lan, with her sharp eyes, grabbed my arm and pulled me back. Fuming with indignation, she said, Mom, you've never even worn clothes this expensive. What right does she have to wear them? I just smiled. My ex-husband is actually quite stingy. Even if Jiang Lan hadn't stopped him, he wouldn't have agreed to spend that much on a piece of clothing. Otherwise, why would he just stand there, letting his daughter run wild, willing to lose face rather than say a word? No matter how devoted a man is, he'll eventually grow tired of being with the same woman for too long. It's like loving apples. If you eat them every single day, you'll occasionally crave something different. What's more, at that age, needing constant care, no matter how perfect the first love was, reality will inevitably shatter it. Without exception, I went into the clothing store, tried on some outfits, and picked out a few pieces I liked. As they went to pay, Jiang Lan pushed forward, Mom, let me get this. She was instantly speechless when she saw the total on the bill. She stammered, Mom, you really don't hold back, do you? Well, when it's for yourself, you shouldn't be stingy. A single piece of clothing costs me over 10,000 yuan these days. Besides, I'm quite well off now. Xiaowei paid back all the money I had supported her with for 6 years, and even gave me a generous share of the profits. When I went to scan the code to pay, the shopkeeper smiled and waved me off, saying, your little girl